ever hear? You ever notice that the information that we're being fed doesn't always add up to the truth? Do you ever look out your window at night when the rain's falling down? You ever look down the street and wonder what is going on around you? You ever look out at night and ask yourself, is this all that I am? Where am I? What am I? Is this all there is? Is this real life? As technology continues to bring us closer together, it also tears us further apart. We watch the skies and look at the planet around us and its natural beauty as it continues to march forward on and on and on, unending, unceasing, unwavering. And yet our world, everything that we've built crumbles around us. We wonder, is this it? Is there more? There's gotta be. We can search. We want to learn. We want to understand. We want to see all that we can see, know all that we can know. We want to look out there. We want to peek behind the veil. We want to ask the questions that nobody will answer. We want to light those fires, the sparks that ignite a curiosity in us. And we ask ourselves, what is out beyond all of that? Beyond the edge of reality. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another edition of The Edge of Reality. It has been a while, folks. Thank you all so much for joining me. And yes, had to change the background up a little bit for this one because why not? Oh, my goodness, folks. Like I said, it has been a little bit of a hot second since I did the show. I skipped a week. Last week I was down with some chest congestion, whatnot. I'm mostly better now, but still got a little bit of sinus activity going on. But otherwise, I am in good shape, and it is time to get things rolling, which gave me an extra week to kind of prepare for this show and do a little bit more research. And boy, howdy. This show, this topic runs deep, and I mean really, really fascinatingly deep, because there's a lot of unanswered questions with regard to it. A lot of people have a lot of questions, myself included, but even more so, there's a lot of very strange things going on here. So, by the end of tonight, I don't know if I can provide you with answers, but I will definitely provide you with the series, a very veritable cornucopia of questions that make you go, did something really happen here besides the obvious? Or is this just a whole bunch of malarkey? Well, we shall see. And going around the room, I've gone ahead and sent out invites. So if you guys don't mind, definitely go up there to that pinned comment. You can check me out on Twitter and all the other places as usual. Definitely go ahead, if you can, share this out live, as well as the links to the show. Try and get as many people in here as I can to say I totally forgot to send out my usual invite. God, I need a producer. Anyway, so that is what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to see how things go. I know that there are some other folks that are streaming right now, but it's going to be a good time. I've got some wild stuff to talk about with this one. So starting off, Miss K Griff, Lego, awesome. Good to see you there. And yes, I'm pretty sure that I was late. Yes, I know. It's all right. Had to do some stuff, before the show started. And Irish Latina, hi all, good to see you. I think it's Tayana, my bad. My Spanish is a little rusty. And Cool Gamer, what's going on there, bud? And Jenny B, howdy, Jenny. And yes, actually, I am feeling a lot better. Thank you so much there. And This Way Up, good to see you there, This Way Up. Fantastic. So, yeah, this has kind of been a topic that has been in the making for a while because I know that everybody's been kind of getting burned out on the UFO topic. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot in that one topic to talk about. Hey, what's going on, Short Order Cook? Good to see you. So, yeah, the UFO topic has been one that I have definitely needed a slight break from. And while we are still going to have plenty of content on that end to check out over future episodes, tonight I decided to do something a little different. And so we're going to be talking about the famous case of the Amityville Horror, as it's colloquially known in pop culture. But also, we got to acknowledge the grisly the grisly murders of 6 people in 1974, and it is honestly a case that really lends itself well as an introduction to this spooky season. Yes. So, and if you thought that was bad, wait till I actually try and do my cackle. Anyway, so just kind of taking it easy, letting folks file in, see if there's anybody that jumps in here. And while we're at it, checking out over on Rumble, we are streaming live both on YouTube, Rumble, and on Twitter. I refuse to call it X out of protest, but whatever. And yep, there you go. Figured that this would warrant the change up to the layout and everything. So let's see here. Kind of getting a little bit of house cleaning and whatnot ahead of time before we really get started. So we're going to be doing this show tonight, and then also don't forget, put a reminder on your calendars. Definitely go down there if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell down there at the bottom of the my page there on the screen, so that way you are notified whenever there are new shows and things announced. And also, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so and hit that like button for me, please. Just smash that like button. So, the question that kind of came up to me as far as like what really. So anyway, I apologize. I got off track there. So the little housekeeping I was talking about. So in addition to this show tonight, so tomorrow night, that is going to be Thursday the 12th, 9 p.m. Eastern, and I will be on time for that show. 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, we are going to be doing our episode of Real Talk Live. Now, I know that we have had a little bit of a rough time recently with we've had a really bit of a rough experience lately with the Ahsoka series. I'm glad to say the Ahsoka series is over. We don't have to talk about it ever again if we don't want to. There are some people that would probably like it if I have just stopped talking about it, but that's just me. And honestly, so where we're kind of coming at this from is that tomorrow we're getting back to form. We are going to be ushering in the spooky season the right way by hanging out with some amazing people tomorrow night. We are going to have a live panel discussion tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we are going to be talking about what are our top 5 movies individually that we really go to watch and to usher in the spooky season with. So kind of a little bit of a top 5 horror movies by each person. It's going to be a great time. I've already gotten confirmation of attendance by a lot of really cool YouTubers. So tomorrow night, you can come here, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can join me. You can join Chandler Remington, Mo in the Deep End, Dave from MLS Law, The Expert, and The White Rabbit for our chat and discussion on our top 5 horror movies to kick off spooky season the right way. And trust me, we all have our own individual top 5s. And yeah, we're going to talk about those movies. We're going to have some fun. And thank God I'm not, I don't have the full ad revenue thing yet, so I don't have to worry about being completely demonetized, because I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be some trailers that get kicked around too. So it is going to be a good time, some great people, and we are going to have a good night chatting about some movies, hanging out, having a great discussion. And I hope to see all of you there tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. All right. So that gets the early housekeeping out of the way, kind of gets everything started down the trail. And that is going to be a fun panel. I am excited. There were other people I wanted to throw some invites to as well, but I decided that for a show like this, I kind of wanted to keep it a bit lower key, and then of course we can always invite more people to other shows as we go along. But yeah, I think we got a good spread. Hey, what's going on, Fast Group? Good to see you there, bud. Fantastic. And hey, Gigi is over there on Rumble. What's going on, Gigi? And yeah, looks like we are all set and ready to go here. So let's kick things off and get into the Amityville Horror. All right. So I'm going to take us a little bit back in time to over 50 years ago at this point. Hey, what's going on, Tits and Ray Guns? Okay, so I'm not as late as you are with your home brewing. Yes, I know. I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I just need to rip the Band-Aid off and do it already. Yeah, I've got a Marzen that I really want to brew, but, Anywho. So we'll take you back to Amityville, New York, on the night of November 18th, 1974. Quiet night. There was, the weather was actually pretty decent. It was actually it was like a bit warm for the time being, a little slight breeze. Yes, I actually looked up the weather reports for what the weather conditions were that day. It seemed like a perfect fall day. And the night had really got gotten off to a great start. It was just a calm, easygoing evening in the town of Amityville, New York. But then things were brewing and had been brewing for some time in the house at 121 Overlook Drive. Some things were happening, and there was a lot of buildup to what happened that night. A lot of questions, a lot of speculation, a lot of things that we do know, other things we don't know completely. But what we do know is that on that night, a young man of 23 years old by the name of Ronald DeFeo Jr., aka Butch DeFeo, took a 35 caliber Marlin Model 336 lever action rifle. He stalked his way up the stairs in the night, just after 3 o'clock in the morning, and fatally shot all 6 of his family members. His parents twice, each of the 4 children each once. The details of the actual crime, which I believe we will get into and we will talk about, only serve to emphasize the brutality of this. And that would have been bad enough. But allegedly, DeFeo then disposed of the evidence, took a bath, went to work the next day, worked a full day, and then, in the evening of the following day, went to a local bar and reported that he thought that his family had been shot. When the police arrived on scene, they found the very grisly scene. And DeFeo was taken in for questioning, but it soon became apparent that there was something else going on. And that led to a number of crazy things happening. Ronald DeFeo Jr. was questioned and eventually stood trial for the murders. A lot of interesting things came out of that murder trial. But during the time that he was even on trial, the house went up for sale after sitting vacant for 13 months. The family that bought the house, George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children, thought it was their dream home. But 28 days later, they fled that house at 121 Overlook Avenue. They fled it, leaving all of their belongings behind. Everything that they owned stayed there. And shortly afterwards began a story that, whether you believe it's fact or fiction, it's one of the most terrifying tales that has enraptured the public consciousness in popular culture and popular mythology for years. George and Kathy Lutz detailed 28 days of living in a veritable hellscape. Their house, their dream house, had become a nightmare. Something allegedly was there, tormenting them, constantly attacking them. And on the 28th day, they finally fled. Not long afterward, 2 people were called by some folks that knew George and Kathy Lutz to come and take a look at this house to see if there was something else going on. Those 2 were Ed and Lorraine Warren, the well-known demonologist and clairvoyant couple that made a lot of their name on investigating these so-called haunted and possessed locations. Strangely, after everything was said and done, the investigation wrapped. The house was put up on the market. It apparently sold. The people that moved in right immediately afterward never reported any sort of issues whatsoever. Since 1975, whenever the Lutzes moved out of the house has apparently changed hands an additional 4 times, with none of the current or former tenants, reporting anything odd ever happening in the house. Interesting. Later in his later years, Butch DeFeo confessed that some of the things he said were a hoax and whatnot. But again, this is a man who's now been in prison for decades at this point. What kind of makes you wonder what was going on? Because the Lutzes, not long after, apparently became very rich, working with a writer by the name of Jay Anson, who helped write their stories down into a book called The Amityville Horror, which not only went on to become a bestseller and captivated the nation's attention, but then later on, it became the topic of a movie produced by MGM Studios in 1979, and again, a remake starring Ryan Reynolds happened in 2005. And even the Conjuring movie, like I think it was The Conjuring 2, was actually about this particular case, starring the actors that played Ed and Lorraine Warren in popular culture in the Conjuring movies. So this is the origin of a lot of things, and I kind of want to help us try and sift down to see where's the truth, where's the lies, but also what are some of the strange coincidences and things that just don't add up. So we'll talk about all that tonight on The Edge of Reality. All right, and let me go ahead and see here. So Tits and Raygun says the Amityville Horror movie gets a 2 from me due to lack of fan service. Okay. That sure wasn't the movie. Okay. Ms. Kaker says, I'm not sure if I've seen the movie, which is crazy. Not as crazy as this guy, but crazy. Oh, yeah. So that kind of gets us started into the whole thing. All right. So let's go ahead and get cracking into this here. Present. There we go. So we're going to get into the biography a little bit here of is like Ronald DeFeo Jr., aka Butch DeFeo. All right. In 1974, Ronald DeFeo killed his entire family, including his parents, brothers, sisters, while they were sleeping in their beds. The murders inspired the film The Amityville Horror. That is Ronald DeFeo Jr. or Butch DeFeo. Probably just call him Butch DeFeo from here on out, but you know. All right. Starting in 1951, so who is Ronald DeFeo? Despite having a comfortable childhood in Amityville, New York, Ronald DeFeo grew up emotionally troubled. In 1974, he murdered his entire family as they slept. The murders were popularized in several novels and films, including The Amityville Horror, a true story. Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr. was born on September 26, 1951, in Brooklyn, New York. DeFeo was the oldest of 5 children born to Ronald, and a successful car salesman, and Louise DeFeo. Ronald Sr. worked at his father-in-law's Brooklyn Buick dealership and provided the family with a comfortable upper-middle-class lifestyle. But he also served as a domineering authority figure and engaged in hot-tempered fights with his wife and children. Most frequent targets of abuse were the eldest child, Butch, of whom much was expected. It only got worse at school, where the overweight and brooding boy was the victim of relentless taunting from his classmates. As DeFeo matured, he began lashing out physically against his father as well as his friends. As well as his few friends. His concerned family took him to see a psychiatrist, but the visits didn't sit well with DeFeo, who denied that he needed help. The trips to the doctor stopped, and in their place, the DeFeos used an incentive of cash and presents, including a $14,000 speedboat, in the hopes that the gifts would placate the troubled son. But the new tactic only made the problems worse. By the age of 17, DeFeo had become an LSD and heroin user and was expelled from school for his violent outbursts. So, already dipping into the drugs and, yeah. In spite of his academic setbacks, the DeFeos continued to reward their son. At the age of 18, DeFeo received a prized position at his grandfather's car dealership with little to no expectations. He also earned a weekly stipend from his father, regardless of his attendance or job performance at work. DeFeo funneled his salary into his new car, another present from his parents, as well as guns, alcohol, and drugs. DeFeo's strange behavior seemed to only increase with time. He threatened a friend with a rifle during a hunting trip, then later that day acted as if nothing happened. He also attempted to shoot his father with a 12-gauge shotgun during a fight between his parents. DeFeo pulled the trigger at point-blank range, and the gun malfunctioned. His surprised father ended the argument, but was left stunned by the whole confrontation. The incident foreshadowed the more violent events to come. In 1974, DeFeo, feeling irritated by what was believed a meager salary, plotted methods for embezzling money from the car dealership. In late October, the dealership entrusted him with the responsibility of depositing more than $20,000 in the bank. DeFeo planned a mock robbery with a friend, agreeing to split the money evenly with his accomplice. The plan went off without a hitch until police came to the dealership to question him. Instead of calmly answering the officer's question, DeFeo exploded into rage. When police, suspicious that DeFeo was lying, asked him to come to the station to check out mugshots of possible suspects, he refused to comply. Ronald Sr. began to suspect that his son had committed the robbery, but when he questioned his son about the lack of cooperation of police, DeFeo threatened to kill his father. Yeesh. Dude had some issues. All right. In the early morning hours of November 13th, 1974, DeFeo acted on his threat. Using a .35 caliber Marlin hunting rifle from a secret gun stash, he entered the parents' bedroom and shot them both while they slept. He had entered the brothers' bedroom, shooting them both in their beds. He ended up by shooting the sisters point blank in their bedrooms. All the murders took place within 15 minutes. DeFeo then showered, dressed for work, and collected his bloody clothing and the murder weapon in a pillowcase. He dumped the evidence in a storm dray on the way to work at the dealership at 6 a.m. Upon arriving at work, DeFeo called home, pretending not to know why his father hadn't shown up for work, saying that he was bored around noon and left work to spend the day with his friends. He attempted to secure an alibi by telling each of them that he couldn't seem to reach anyone at home. At 6 p.m., he called a friend in a mock surprise, saying that someone had broken into the house and shot his family. Friends came to the home and contacted authorities when a Suffolk County detective to question DeFeo about who could be a suspect in these murders. He told them that he believed the mafia hitman Luis Fellini may have been responsible. DeFeo cited an old grudge between the maid man and the family over some work DeFeo did for him at the dealership. He then told police that he had been up late watching TV and unable to sleep, left for work early. He said he believed that his family was alive when he left for the work. Then told them of his whereabouts for the rest of that day. Police placed DeFeo in protective custody as they searched for a suspect. After police were more carefully searched the family's house, however, DeFeo's testimony began to crumble. Finding an empty box for a recently purchased Marlin .35 caliber rifle in DeFeo's room gave authorities pause. As the timeline came together, it seemed more realistic that the murders had happened early in the morning. The family had all been still wearing their pajamas, so it couldn't have happened earlier in the day, placing DeFeo at home at the time of the homicides. While authorities questioned DeFeo about the new evidence, he began to change his story. He said that Fellini had appeared at the house early that morning and put a revolver to DeFeo's head. He then said Fellini had an accomplice, dragged him from the room to room as they murdered his family. As the story unraveled, police extracted a confession from DeFeo. He finally broke down. Quote, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop," he said. "It went so fast." Yeah, .35 caliber. It's kind of an uncommon caliber these days, but I do know that there was a .35 caliber that was around at that time, but from what I could find, it was a .35 caliber, Marlin Model 336. So whatever calibers they offered that in at the time. .35 Whalen, I'm not entirely sure. All the articles I've found only really mention .35 caliber. Ooh. Okay. Hope things are okay there, Mrs. Gaygriff. Hmm. Oh, Fast Root says I just built a 35 Whalen with I was like on a large ring Mauser. Ooh, snazzy. I like Mausers. Oh yeah, just the description he gave. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, definitely crumbled in the interrogation room as as you can see. But don't worry, the story gets way more interesting and deep. So, trial and imprisonment. DeFeo's trial began October 14th, 1975, nearly a year from the date of the murders. DeFeo's defense attorney, William Weber, attempted an insanity plea for him. The murder suspect told jurors that he had heard voices that told him to kill his family. The psychiatrist for the defense, Dr. Daniel Schwartz, supported the claim, saying that DeFeo was a neurotic that suffered from dissociative disorder. But the psychiatrist for the prosecution, Dr. Harold Zolan, proved that DeFeo suffered from antisocial personality disorder, the illness that made the defendant aware. The illness made him, the defendant, aware of his actions, but motivated by a self-centered attitude. Jurors agree with this assessment, and on November 21st, 1975, they found DeFeo guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences and sent to Greenhaven Correctional Facility in Beekman, New York. His appeals to parole board have all been turned down. After his imprisonment, several novels and films appeared about the slayings. The first of them, entitled The Amityville Horror, A True Story, was published in September 1977. The account followed the Lutz family, who lived in the DeFeo house after the murders. The story detailed allegedly true stories of poltergeists that terrorized the Lutz family. A movie based on the book called The Amityville Horror was released to popular appeal in 1979. Subsequent remakes and sequels of this film included a 2005 remake produced by Michael Bay and a factual account of the DeFeo tragedy in the book Mentally Ill in Amityville 2008 by Will Saviv. So, that is the basic rundown of the Butch DeFeo murders. Hey, what's going on, genitals? Good to see you. Catching up at double speed. Yep. Luckily, we're not too far in, so probably about the first 15, 20 minutes is just kind of me, talking to the audience and whatnot, so you can catch up pretty quick. So, now we come to some of the more interesting facts surrounding the case. So, the interesting part that we have to note here is that we also have photos from inside the house. And yeah, we have crime scene photos. Now, for obvious reasons, and I definitely want to make sure that I go ahead and preface this before we go any further, I will not be showing any crime scene photos that include dead bodies or anything. There might be a bloody mattress. I'll just say that. There might be a bloody mattress, but there will not be any dead bodies or any kind of other stuff shown. So just giving you fair warning ahead of time and just making sure that I do preface that. Hey, what's going on, Levy? Good to see you joining in. And hey, Nandor's Man Bun says, hey, Kaiser, awesome. Good to see you. All right. Sorry, I had to get a little drink there. So Okay, and yep, I gotta again, I gotta make sure not to show that. And I'm just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna make one quick trip again down through these pictures. To make sure that there's, yeah, I don't show anything. Okay, I'll have to be very careful. Those don't really show anything, but yeah, okay. Gotta be careful there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and jump over here. So, and I'm gonna try to embiggen this as much as I can, but there's only so much that I can do to kind of increase the size of the pictures there. Let's see if I can. There we go. So I'll just drop myself down into this little corner here. So this is an overall like an aerial view of the actual house. And you can see the iconic windows associated with the Amityville house. And there's a shot from the front of the house. And these are all crime scene photos taken in 1974 as the house looked at the time. Now, what's interesting to note, and I'm trying to find some more information on this, but I did find something very interesting. It was noted actually by Ed and Lorraine Warren, was that there were 4 of these types of statues at the 4 corners of the property. Now, these statues included various members from Catholic faith, so they've, statues of Jesus, Mary, and other religious figures. These apparently were statues purchased from a place that did these types of statues primarily for churches, and they were blessed and consecrated and whatnot. And actually, they were done in Canada. And apparently, only weeks before the murders happened, allegedly Ronald DeFeo Jr., excuse me, drove all the way to Canada to pick these things up and put them at the corners of the property. Let's see. Libby says, "What are the weird statues? Not garden gnomes." So, these are they're statues of various Catholic religious figures. I can't see exactly what this one is. I believe it's one of the saints, but there are other pictures that we'll kind of get into. But what's odd is that they were placed at the 4 corners of the property, which kind of goes in line with a type of exorcism ritual. Hey, what's going on, Mexican Vader? Ironic how all these, quote, demonic possessions that allegedly caused these tragedies occurred after insane asylums shut down and can generally be contributed to mental illness. Just makes one think. Yes. And as we detailed early on, Butch DeFeo had 2 separate psych evaluations from 2 different, from 2 different psychologists. Both of them said that he had definite mental issues. None of them said that he claimed, at least near as we can tell from this, that he had suffered from any kind of, quote, demonic possession or anything. The only thing that he said was that he heard voices saying that his parents were plotting against him. Now, take that with a giant grain of salt, because, that can be just him making stuff up, or that could be a side effect of the dissociative, dissociative anti-personality disorder that they did diagnose him with. So this is actually from the driveway of the house. You can see the DeFeo's car there. So, yep. The DeFeos were not that bad off. They lived in an upper middle class, neighborhood. They made a decent living. They had a lot going on for them, but yeah, apparently there was a lot of issues in that house. A lot of it pertained to Ronnie Sr.'s temper, and allegedly he was not not exactly a great guy. Over on Rumble, Gigi asked, "Do you believe in demon possession?" Let me be completely honest with you on that. I don't completely know. I think that there is evidence to that effect, but I also think that there are a lot of people who falsely get that concept of demonic possession foisted on them, who probably are dealing with something more akin to some type of mental problem, some sort of mental illness. So, is it absolutely real? I tend to err on the side of I think that there is something to it. Can I definitively say one way or the other? Obviously, I cannot say definitively, but I believe there's something to it. Yeah. So, hey, what's going on, Murph's Turf? Good to see you. I'm late for my favorite Wednesday evening stream. Oh, sorry there. Well, we're glad you're here, Murph, and say nonetheless. And don't worry, guys. You actually just caught at the very beginning, so we've still got quite a bit left to go. And yeah. And Gigi over on Rumble also says, "Thank you for respecting the deceased." Absolutely. I don't want to get my channel yeeted. Two, I mean, obviously, I want to make sure that I do my due diligence for the families and try and be sensitive to that. Murphsturf says, "The religious possession exorcism thing freaks me out. I can't watch the movies." Well, yeah, I have always. I think we'll probably get more into this toward the end of the stream, but kind of talking about my own personal feelings on the matter. But yeah, there's a reason why I don't really tend to watch much of any kind of media or read books or anything like that about those topics, because I kind of learned something during my time doing paranormal investigations that I briefly dipped into, is that you can get things to come through just by talking about them. So, real talk with Kaiser. Yep. Well, don't forget, and as I mentioned everybody early on there, Murph, don't forget tomorrow's going to be a fun time, and I'm going to be also talking. I'm going to be doing real REEL talk as a real talk live tomorrow as well, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be doing a panel discussion with some great guests, and we're going to be talking about our top 5 horror movies for the spooky season. So you can come over here and join me, Chandler Remington, Mo in the Deep End, Dave from MLS Law, the expert, and White Rabbit on our little chat and talk about our favorite horror movies. So that's kind of gets us, a little bit of a midstream grift there. Mrs. K Griff, possession and demons scare the shit out of me. Ironically, my favorite genre is scary movies. Yeah, I'd say it's something else. I still say, honestly, of all those types of movies, I got to say my personal favorite is The Exorcist 3 Legion. I friggin' love that movie. And y'all can let me know by both in the comments section as well as on the this here, if you might be interested in doing a watch party maybe sometime this weekend. We might do a watch party on using Amazon of Exorcist 3, which is a really, really good movie. All right. So continuing on through some of these photos, here's one of the side. Here's the side yard. There's the back of the house. Here's another one of those statues that I mentioned. So this one is of course of Jesus. So oh, Murph, no, I'm out. Can't do it. I highly recommend you try it anyway because it's not it's not the what you think it is. And I gotta say, just Brad Dourif and George C. Scott's performance in those movies, or in that movie, is just fantastic. Yeah. Mexican Vader says the movies, specifically the Conjuring, Annabelle movies, while not always 100% accurate, because, well, Hollywood, are still fairly good for what they are. Yes, I would agree with that. Fast Group says Halloween at the drive-in when Jamie Lee Curtis showed her. Yeah, there you go. uh, Miss K. Griff says I went to see The Conjuring by myself, then went home by myself. Didn't sleep much that night. Oof. Yeah. Mexican Vader says, but I don't F with demons, spirits, or anything associated with them. No Ouija boards, tarot cards, etc. For me, no thank you. Huge nope. And that is the smart way to go about things. That is definitely, the one thing I will say, if you're going to take any information actually from me, if you're going to actually take any information that I have to say as the spoken word, don't mess with this stuff. Anything to do with ghosts or spirits, demons, poltergeists, or anything of that nature, Ouija boards, tarot cards, astral projection, out of body experiences. Do not do any of that, and don't go down that rabbit hole, because you will find that there are things that can be let out that you can't put back in the bottle. And I have firsthand seen some of the after effects that can have on people. Trust me. Don't do it. All right. So continuing on here. So yeah, there's another statue. It's hard to tell some of these photos because they're not all the right aspect ratio and size, but I believe that's Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, I think. This is the boathouse on the property. The house actually butts right up against a canal, so there's an actual boathouse here, and it was a really nice one too. I believe this is the inside of the boathouse. Yes, see the. All right, now we get to the inside of the house. This was the rear entryway. Didn't work out well for Robin Williams. Oh, rest in peace, buddy. Oof. Miss Kager says, my toddler talks about her, quote, friend in her room that isn't nice occasionally. I hate it. Oh, God. Okay, definitely be busting out the sage and doing some things that, yeah, bust out the sage, say some prayers, do some stuff, get some people called in, and just, yeah, nip that shit in the bud quick. Let's see. Say GG over on Rumble says, Kaiser, I've seen things too, so I understand. Oh boy. I When we get closer to that portion of the show, kind of doing a little bit of the old real talk, um, I'll kind of talk a little bit about my own experiences. I'll talk a little bit about an epiphany that I had right around this time and just doing research for the show. Yeah, it definitely brought some feelings up for me. Miss K. Griff says, we also get movement alerts on the camera and her room is empty. Yeah, that's terrifying. All right, so this is the kind of the foyer area. So you have the staircase over here. There's one of the doors, and then there's this kind of sitting area. The dining room. I mean, again, this is a nice house. This is really well appointed. It looks gorgeous. I mean, this is as it was during when the crime scene technicians came in and actually started taking photos of the house. This was a really nice house. This is the kitchen. And say at that time, I mean, you guys have any idea how rare and expensive dishwashers were back then? See, that was kind of a neat thing. Shorter to Cook one says tarot reading is a pseudoscience, well documented, that has history dating back to the 1450s Italy. There's a lot of research into them, not just woo woo. Yep. AP says, hasn't everyone witnessed a black figure peeking around a corner? Oh, I've definitely seen that and more. We'll talk later. Murph Turf says, I love clumsy, so I can't hate on tarot. That linoleum, yeah. Mexican hater says most dishwashers back then had 2 legs and a broken mute button. Oh, so bad. Oh, canceled. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the pumpkin. Yeah, seems a little odd to think about now. The kitchen area, there was a TV. There were still actually dishes in the sink with, stuff that hadn't been completely cleaned in it yet. Seems a little eerie to think about. I believe this was the basement, which had a sitting area, pool table. Yeah, this was the basement, definitely. And some clothes that were found down there. God, that wood paneling brings back memories from some houses I lived in. Let's see, are they soaking cast iron? I don't know. Okay, now you got me curious. No, I don't think that's cast iron. It's too thin for one. I think it's probably that if I had to guess, it probably looks kind of more like that porcelain coated or lacquered steel. I'm not sure. So this is like one of the walls. There was a bunch of games and toys and stuff. Because again, there was 4 kids in the house. The youngest I think was like 12. I think my grandparents had that exact same looking rug, or at least one like it. Yeah, there was the downstairs washer, dryer. Again, everything looks completely normal for the most part. Stairs going up to the first floor. Bathroom. Look at that piano. Oh my God. That thing is nice. Yeah, the cast iron. Woo, that would have been the most horrifying part. This was so. Yeah, as somebody who has all cast iron cookware, I would have been horrified myself. Mercer says those washing machines lasted forever. Yeah. Trust me, I had one until it literally just fell apart. Yeah, this was a really nice house. Again, This apparently, for all of his ills, Ronald DeFeo Sr. provided for his family. Not saying that justifies anything that he did or any of the bullying or things that he did to his family. I'm just saying that's just kind of the way it was. Gigi asks over on Rumble, when was this house built? Yeah, that's a good question. When was the Amityville house built? Property was built in 1927 at 112 Ocean Avenue. Okay. Over the years, the address has changed a few times. Ocean Avenue to dissuade gawking tourists. The house has also undergone renovations, with its eye windows replaced with square windows and a lighter facade. Yep. Mexican Vaders says, my back hurts to think about moving up a flight of stairs. Up until he didn't. Can't you stay there as a B&B or something? Now, I don't know. I don't think that it's been made into an Airbnb or like a Verbo or something. Honestly, I recently heard that it just sold again in 2022. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know about that. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't think that'd be a good idea for people that have the property anyway, because then you're just asking for some nut job to come in there, stay overnight, and bring in a Ouija board or something like that, which just don't. Just don't. All right, this is a little bar area. There's the stairs that go up to the second floor. Now, allegedly, there was a little room underneath these stairs, and I believe it's been referred to as the Red Room. I could be wrong about that. Here's something that's interesting. So apparently, the DeFeos had these pictures on the wall, these portraits. Ronald DeFeo Sr. wanted pictures of him and his family and all of his children, and he wanted them painted. So he actually spent money hiring an artist to come in and actually paint these actual portraits of his family. And they hung on these gold frames on the staircase. So this is the living room area. There's a drawing of the house that hung on the wall. So here's where we're starting to get into, I believe this is starting to get into the upper floors. I believe this starts to get into Butch DeFeo's room, because that's a mini fridge on a small table. It looks like in a closet. So yeah, you see this room, a lot of religious iconography on the walls. So devout Catholic family. This door is very dirty. I wonder if they did that if that's like when they did analysis for fingerprints or something. Allegedly, they found a letter underneath a corner of the rug. Near as I could tell, the evidence information that I could find, it doesn't appear that this had anything to do with it. It was just something that was found during evidence evaluation. It was a military grade flashlight found on a chair. There's the upstairs bathroom and bathtub. Okay. And real quick, I've got to switch to another screen. Okay, because you can't really see anything, but you do see some hair poking up out of out from underneath a pillow, and that's definitely a corpse, which obviously we don't want to show. So here's another shot from that same room. There's a dead body on the other bed, but you can't see it. So again, it looks very, stately appointed. Not like there's anything going on there. I'm just going through and preemptively checking again. Okay, I see where I need to stop. All right. So there's a few pictures coming up here I do want to give folks a warning about. So if you got sensitive stomachs coming up, there is a bloody mattress coming up. So, I will try and give you a bit more of a warning as we get closer, but this is the closet in one of the boys' rooms. And there's the bloody mattress. I thought I had more time before I got to that. Sorry about that. Okay, well, I guess I tried to give you guys much warning as I could. It's just a bloody mattress, but it's, yeah. Ugh. This is a shot of the stair, like if you're from the main floor, looking up the stairs. Yeah, sorry. Again, I'm going out of my way to not show any of the like the grislier photos. Trust me. I'm there. Trust me. This slideshow that we're looking at right now, there are up close pictures of the bodies, which I am very careful to not show for a very specific reason. So this is a chair on the landing outside, and this photo below, there's a body in it. So switch over here. Again, I mean, that one's not, again, you just see some hair and, picking up from underneath the covers. That's it. But still, going out of my way to be as respectful as possible. Okay, back in the same room. This is one of the daughter's rooms. So the previous two pictures were of this bed right here. This is over on just the side of the room past that. So there, we were not actually seeing what was on the bed. Just being upfront about that. And this was they found in a storm drain further down the road, they found the rifle and Butch DeFeo's clothes and some stuff that he used to clean up the crime scene. Yep. That's all of what this slideshow has to offer there. So, going over here. Okay, again, making sure that I am very careful and cautious of what's shown. All right. Okay. Grizzly Discovery. Oh, shit. You guys can see that. Sorry. All right. Let me switch over to another screen so that way I don't accidentally show you something I'm not supposed to. There's a lot to this, and so I'm trying to make sure that I'm I'm trying to make sure I don't show a lot of stuff. Okay. Because, yeah, on this website in particular, I don't think that there's any pictures. Okay. Of anything that we don't need. Okay. Yeah, so I have to be careful, but because there are some of those pictures on this website, but I know where they're at now, so I can avoid those. Okay. All right. So jumping over here, this is actually a website dedicated to the Amityville murders. So this kind of is again a recap of the story, what happened. So we'll read through this, and there's a lot to unpack here, but we'll definitely look into it. So we even have a transcript of the 911 call. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So here we are. In the early evening hours of November 13th, 1974, the patrons of Henry's Bar, a tavern located at the corner of Merrick Road and Ocean Avenue in Amityville, chatted while sipping their beers and cocktails. To them, the start of the evening seemed uh, like a typical one in Amityville, calm and uneventful. By night's end, however, life in Amityville would never be the same again. At 6:30 p.m., Ronald DeFeo Jr., known to locals as Butch, opened the door of the bar and yelled, "You've got to help me. I think my mother and father are shot." One of the patrons seated at the bar was Bobby Kelsky, an out of work brick mason and Butch's best friend. Bobby raced to his friend, who had fallen to his knees. Crying hysterically, Butch again pleaded for help. "Bobby, you got to help me. Somebody shot my mother and father." "Are you sure they're not asleep?" Bobby offered. "No, I saw them up there." "Come on, let's go. Then let's go." Butch got to his feet and called for others at the bar to follow. Bobby back and him back to the house. Answering Butch's call was John Altieri, Joey Yes White, Al Saxon, and William Scordmaglia. Scordmaglia, sorry, owner of Henry's Bar. The six men piled into Butch's 1970 blue Buick Electra 225. Butch climbed in the back while Bobby took the wheel. Although the DeFeo house was only a block away, Bobby drove frantically down the street. One of the men yelled for him to slow down, but Bobby ignored the comment, driving at 112 Ocean Avenue in a matter of seconds. The DeFeo residence was a large, rambling, three-story Dutch colonial built sometime in 1925. Because the property was long and narrow, the dark shingled house sat sideways with the front door facing the elongated driveway. At the end of the DeFeo's 237-foot-long lot sat their boathouse right at the edge of the Amityville Creek. But to most distinguished characters of 112 Ocean Avenue was the dramatic front yard. Overlooking the street were two quarter moon windows that looked like eyes, a feature common in Dutch colonial homes. On the front lawn stood a lamppost with a sign attached that read "High Hopes," a symbolic title of the family's life in suburbia. Kneeling beside the sign were three figurines of children praying to a larger statue of Saint Joseph holding the baby Jesus. Hey, what's going on, Sean? Wallpaper. Well, a mistake that was. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Making sure I didn't miss anything with the chat. Okay. Bobby pulled the car into a quick halt and climbed out. As he climbed the front porch steps, the other man cautioned, "Be careful, somebody might be in there." "I don't care," Bobby yelled as he opened the unlocked door to the DeFeo home. Now, mind you, this is Butch's best friend, and he just heard that his best friend's parents, and family may have just gotten murdered. So it seems like he's trying to be a stand-up guy. The house was quiet except for the barking of Shaggy, the DeFeo's sheepdog, who was tied up to the inside of the kitchen's back door. Because the dog was not totally housebroken, the family routinely tied the animal there. The interior of the DeFeo home was just as impressive as the exterior. To the right of the marble-covered foyer was a formal dining room with red velveted texture wallpaper lining the walls. In the center of the room, over the Dutch-style table, seating six, hung a crystal chandelier. A textbook belonging to one of Butch's younger siblings sat unopened on the table next to a bouquet of wilting red roses. Across the foyer was the living room, which contained a baby grand piano. Fronting the large fireplace was a pair of white satin cushioned chairs. Lavish paintings and statues were scattered throughout the room. It was evident that the Butch's parents insisted on the most expensive items for their house. With Bobby Kelsky in the lead, the five men hurried up the stairs to the second floor. Bobby, a regular visitor to the DeFeo household, knew exactly where the master bedroom was located. As they reached the second floor, they were overwhelmed with the stench of death. Yeah, ruh-roh. Bobby stopped in the doorway of the master bedroom and hit the light switch. Before him lay Ronald Joseph DeFeo Sr., 43, and his wife Louise DeFeo, 42. A hole in the center of DeFeo Sr.'s bare back was first indication the couple was not sleeping. Dried blood had trickled out of the wound, disappearing beneath the obese man's blue boxer shorts. In contrast, Louise DeFeo's wounds were not clearly ascertainable because her body was buried beneath an orange blanket and she was protecting herself as if she was protecting herself against the evening chill. Behind the bed was a mirrored wall, which eerily reflected the macabre scene. Seeing that Bobby was ready to pass out, the other men led him downstairs, past the life-size portraits of the family members that hung on the staircase wall. John Altieri remained on the second floor and checked out the northeast bedroom. Clipper ships, cannons, and eagles dotted the room's wallpaper. On the dresser to the left of the door lay several statues and figurines that one would expect to find in a devout Catholic home. Strewn across the floor were athletic shoes and toys, signaling the bedroom belonged to two boys to be exact. On opposite sides of the room lay the bodies of the two young boys, face down like their parents. In the bed on the left lay the body of John DeFeo, 9. Altieri could not pinpoint the bullet hole in John's back since the Knicks sweatshirt he was wearing was covered in blood. In the other bed lay John's brother, Mark DeFeo, 12. Next to Mark's bed was a pair of crutches and a plain gray wheelchair. The boy had recently suffered a football injury and needed their assistance to get around. At the foot of the bed lay a crumpled up green and yellow bedspread and an orange blanket. This time Altieri could make out the wound a single bullet hole in the center of the boy's back. Seeing more than what they wanted, Altieri left the room and rejoined the others on the ground floor. There, Joe Yesway called 911, giving details to the emergency operator. And we do have a transcript of that call. Hey, what's going on, Shenny Graham? Good to see you there. I ate more food tonight. Now, my dude MM wants to chat with you. I'm going to want a code for sure. Okay. Give us the unfiltered hot takes, Kaiser. What are your thoughts? Screw the article. Okay. Look, we'll have plenty of time to get to that. I mean, I've just got to make sure that we got to cover all the bases first. So, the following is a transcript from the operator and the man calling. It's like, operator, Suffolk County Police, may I help you? Man, operator, this is Suffolk County Police. Sorry. The man said, huh? Operator, this is Suffolk County Police, may I help you? Man, we have a shooting here. DeFeo, operator. Sir, what is your name? Man, Joey Yeswit. Operator, can you spell that? Yeah. And it's like, man, yeah, Yeswit. Yeah, Yeswit. They kind of go back and forth spelling it. And they say, operator says, okay, your phone number. Man, I don't know if it's here. There's I don't have a phone number here. Operator, okay, where are you calling from? Man, it's in Amityville. Call up the Amityville police. It's right off man, Ocean Avenue in Amityville. Operator, Austin. Man, Ocean Avenue. What the operator, Ocean Avenue off of where? Man, it's right off Merrick Road, Ocean Avenue. Operator, Merrick Road. What's the problem, sir? Man, it's a shooting. Operator, there's a shooting. Anybody hurt? Huh? Anybody hurt? Yeah, it's everybody's dead. What do you mean everybody's dead? I don't know what happened. Kid came running in at the bar. He says everyone of his family was killed. When he came down here. Hold on a second, sir. Police officer now takes over the call. Police officer, hello? Hello? What's your name? Yeah, my name is Joe Yeswit. Police officer George Edwards. Man, Joe Yeswit. Police officer, how do you spell it? How many times do I have to tell you? He's like, Yeswit. Police officer, where are you at? I'm on Ocean Avenue. What number? I don't have the number here. There's no number on the phone. What number on the house? I don't even know that. Where are you? Ocean Avenue and what? In Amityville. Call the Amityville police and have someone come down here. They know the family. Officer, Amityville? Yeah, Amityville. Okay, now tell me what's wrong. Man, I don't know. A guy came running in the bar. And said his mother and father were shot. We ran down to the house and everybody in the house is shot. I don't know how long, so police officer, what's the address of the house? Man, hold on, I gotta look up the number. All right. Hello, yes. 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville. What? 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville. Yeah, who's on first? They don't seem to be taking this, with a lot of seriousness by the sound of it. Is that a police officer? Is that Amityville or North Amityville? Man, Amityville, right on South of Merrick Road. Is that right in the village limits? No, it's you know where the high school is? Yeah. It's in the village limits, yeah. Yeah, that's the village limits, right? Yeah. Okay, what's your phone number? I don't even have one. There's no number on the phone. All right, where are you calling from? Public home? No, I'm calling from the house because I don't see a number on the phone. You're at the house itself. Yeah. How many bodies are there? I think I don't know. I think they said 4. Police officer, there's 4. they had not found the girls yet. Man, yeah. All right, well, stay right there at the house, and I'll call the Amityville Village PD, and they'll come down. Okay. And that's the complete transcript of the 911 call. All right. So, of course, later on, the trial went ahead, and of course, he was he was eventually found guilty. So, yeah, you'd think that that's kind of where the story ends, but it doesn't. So let's kind of get into this. This is actually, it says, the injustice that followed. So that is actually the rifle in the bag and some ammunition and bloody rags and a sling that were found in the storm drain. On January 15th, 1975, Butch's then lawyer, Jacob Siegfried, motioned the court to be permitted, quote, the right to examine, inspect, copyright, photograph, or make and take photostatic copies of the original notes of the arresting officers, together with police reports containing statements from the witnesses. Siegfried insisted these items were crucial in the affidavit, saying, quote, the defendant was deprived of his right to preliminary hearing of the district court by the district attorney's actions in presenting the case directly to the grand jury, unquote. Regardless, the court did not believe that these items were necessary for Butch's defense, and on March 11th, 1975, presiding Judge John Jones denied the request. With little choice remaining, Siegfried later filed a notice of defense of mental illness or defect for his client. Since the defense had been denied an equal opportunity to have some reports, or have the same reports, records, and photos that the prosecution had in its possession, there was only one choice left, an insanity plea. Butch did not want his sanity questioned, and he threatened to strangle Siegfried with little recourse, and after spending more than $40,000 on attorneys, Michael Brianti Sr. told his grandson, quote, sweetheart, your dime is played out, unquote. This meant that Butch would have to use a court-appointed attorney. On July 7th, 1975, William Weber, from the firm Frederick Mars and Bernard Burton of Patchogue, New York, was assigned by the clerk of the Suffolk County Court to represent Butch at his trial. On July 29th, 1975, Judge Ernest Signorelli, who was at the time presiding over the DeFeo trial, had a conference between Butch, prosecuting attorney Gerard Sullivan, and William Weber. The major concern was that there was no objections to Weber's playing an active role in Judge Signorelli's campaign to be elected to the surrogate court. After everyone agreed Weber's role in the Judge Signorelli's campaign did not pose a problem, the matter of insanity defense came up. Let's see, make sure I don't miss anything there. Okay. Weber was hoping Judge Signorelli would grant the defense motion to obtain copies of all the police reports and crime scene photographs and the prosecution had. On August 1st, 1975, Judge Signorelli issued a ruling on Weber's supplemental omnibus motion, granting the defense copies of the reports and photographs in the prosecution's possession. Since Weber did not receive the documents until the end of August, he had little time to use them in preparation of the defense trial set to begin September 15th. Hey, what's going on, Rose? Hey, OMG, I almost missed another one. I love this case. It's a good one. And we haven't even got to the juicy stuff yet. That was okay. I apologize. That came out wrong. Um, oof. Trying to find my phrasing clip, but I don't see that.
Phrasing.
Yeah. Anyway, on September 15th, 1975, the defense was also struck a devastating blow when Judge Signorelli announced in a hearing, quote, I deem it advisable to disqualify myself from the case, and I'm going to ask the administrative judge to reassign the case, unquote. In his book entitled High Hopes, Sullivan openly admitted that he had an active role behind the judge Signorelli's dismissing himself. Sullivan added, quote, I had not finished maneuvering. I was about to engage in the time-honored strategy that defense lawyers and prosecutors have honed into an art form. Some call it judge shopping, unquote. Sullivan helped pressure Judge Signorelli from the case in order to get the judge he wanted. His wish came true because the DeFeo case was rescheduled to begin on Monday, September 22nd, 1975 at 9:30 a.m. with Justice Thomas Stark, Sullivan's choice, presiding over it. For his book, Talking with Serial Killers, British criminologist Christopher Barry D. interviewed Justice Stark, confronting Justice Stark on Sullivan's handpicking him. Justice Stark, with a wave of his hand, dismissed this and said, in hindsight, it was quite wrong, but things were different back then. At the outset, in an attempt to nail Weber down in a defense, on his defense hearing, during a private post-hearing conference, Judge Stark asked, at this time, Mr. Weber, are you prepared to continue our discussion as the matter of the defendant's intentions of raising the defense of mental disease or deficit? Weber replied, quote, Your Honor, I am not able to answer you on that point at this time, unquote. Still needing a definitive answer, Judge Stark continued pressing Weber on the issue, whereas Weber replied, Your Honor, quote, Your Honor, at this point, the only thing that I could ask the court to consider is my application for an adjournment of the trial, unquote. Excuse me. Weber went on to explain to Justice Stark his need for a 60-day adjournment because he had been retained as an attorney only since July. Weber needed more time to prepare his case, although Judge Signorelli had granted Weber's omnibus motion on August 1st. Weber had not received any paperwork from the district attorney until August 27th. During the post-hearing conference, Weber explained Race's findings, multiple killers, weapons, and accomplices not being prosecuted. With such an overwhelming amount of evidence, Weber felt an adjournment was appropriate. Besides, Weber argued that the presence of an accomplice who they named at a post-hearing conference would show that his, quote, witness, unquote, was not cooperating, might assist Butch in an emotional strain defense rather than a mental deficit one. If an emotional strain defense was used and successful, then the charge against Butch would be reduced from second-degree murder to first-degree manslaughter. Although William Weber fought valiantly for his client, in the end, Justice Stark denied Weber's request and ordered the jury selection to commence on Monday, October 6, 1975. It was clear that Butch DeFeo was not being afforded the fullest protections of the American judicial system. So alternative methods were needed, including persuading Butch to plead insanity by pretending, among other things, to hear voices in the Amityville house. It was the early beginnings of the Amityville haunted house hoax, allegedly. However, Butch was no actor in his testimony and actually backfired when he admitted not hearing any of the so-called voices the night of the murders. In an affidavit, Barry Springer stated that William Weber had told him that people approached him to write a book even before Butch's trial had started. Geraldine DeFeo further explained, quote, because Butch felt insulted that his insanity could be questioned, Weber had to convince him by alternative means. He promised Butch that he'd get out in 2 to 3 years and that he'd be rich from the book's success, unquote. In a notarized affidavit, Geraldine DeFeo admitted to being party in the initial planning of a book about backing out due to ethical concerns. All right. So that's got us caught up on the crime, the case, and what happened. So Rose says, "Hey, I have terrible time with phrasing lately. Yes, be after my meds." Okay. So totally okay. The story has more holes and folklore conspiracies than a sift. Yeah. Trust me, we're going to get into that. There's a lot of things that make me go, wait, hold up. What? Over on Rumble, Gigi says, wait, what? Been watching way too many trials, but all this sounds like BS and Discovery rules. You would be correct. This sounds like a major problem that you're not allowing for proper discovery of your client's, any kind of documentation. Odd. And so, well, as things kind of went, on November 21st, 1975, and say Ronald DeFeo Jr., aka Butch DeFeo, was found guilty and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences for the murders of his entire family. So, taken straight from the newspaper here. Riverhead say Ronald DeFeo Jr. has been found guilty of second-degree murder in the shooting deaths of his mother, father, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters. A jury of 6 men, 6 women returned its verdict this afternoon in state Supreme Court, nearly 2 days after it began deliberations. Shortly after the bodies of the 6 victims were discovered in their beds at the DeFeo's Amityville, Long Island home, the evening of November 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr., 24 years old, the sole surviving member of his family, was taken in for questioning by the police. Excuse me. He soon admitted the killings. Police said, telling Suffolk County detectives that he first fired his .32 caliber, it was actually .35 caliber, Marlin rifle at his father, Ronald Sr., 43, then turned the gun on his mother, Louis, 42. In statements to the police and the testimony during the trial, Mr. DeFeo told Hugh that they went through the 3-story, $75,000 home, shooting one sister, Allison, 13, his brothers, Mark and John, and his older sister, Dawn, 18. The state said Mr. DeFeo's motive was to get his hands on the 6-figure cache of money in a strongbox in the family home. It was the longest trial in the country, or in county. Putting the 7-week trial, 7-week-long murder trial, the longest in the history of Suffolk County, the defense lawyer William Weber tried to prove that Mr. DeFeo was insane at the time he killed his family. Gerard Sullivan, an assistant Suffolk County district attorney, maintained that Mr. DeFeo knew exactly what he was doing and that at the time he was fully aware of the consequences. When testifying in his own behalf, Mr. DeFeo again admitted the slaying, saying that at one point, quote, I couldn't care less what happens to me or the rest of my life, unquote. Justice Thomas Stark will sentence Mr. DeFeo December 4th, at which time he must fix a minimum sentence of no less than 15 years in prison and no more than 25 years. The maximum sentence upon conviction for multiple counts of second-degree murder is life imprisonment. Defense attorney Weber will appeal Mr. DeFeo's conviction. Okay. So yeah, Shinny, I'm actually, despite how I mean, I still got a little bit of congestion, but otherwise, I'm actually doing pretty good. Let's see. Yes, I do sound a little hoarse. Nay. Well, I always appreciate you, Shinny. I always appreciate that you worry for me. AP says, who really needs exculpatory evidence? Discovery not that important. Sarcasm. Yeah, evidence is for the birds, and birds aren't real. I watched his last interview from prison. It was interesting. Yes. Ronald DeFeo Jr. actually passed away not that long ago, only in I think 2014. Which actually, let me double check. No, actually, he died in 2021. Let's see here. Yeah, he died in 2021 at the age of 69. So this is, he passed away not that long ago. Birds are noise making shit bombers. That's funny. All right. So we've covered that. Now we get into an interesting thing that happens. Because right after this all happens, what happened is what ends up happening is that the house, having sat vacant for a while, the house goes up for sale and is purchased by another family by the name of George and Kathy Lutz. So, on December 18th, 1975, the Lutz family moved into the DeFeo home. Although it had been only 13 months since the DeFeo murders had occurred, the family later claimed at a press conference, quote, the DeFeo slayings weren't something that would bother us, unquote. Oh, yeah, Rose, Gigi's actually hanging out over on Rumble. So, yeah. Don't get ahead of me. So, this gets into the book that was later wrote about the Amityville Horror. The DeFeo house evolved from a tragic mass murder scene to an icon of horror in 1977. A runaway bestseller titled The Amityville Horror was written by Jay Anson, took the nation by storm. The promotional copies sent out by the publisher, Prentice Hall, hailed it as a, quote, the nonfiction exorcist, unquote. The cover carried the subtitle of A True Story, and the copyright page read, the names and several individuals mentioned in the book have been changed to protect their privacy. However, all facts and events, as far as we've been able to verify them, are strictly accurate. Author Jay Anson undertook the daunting challenge of chronicling George and Kathy Lutz's questionable claims that they and their 3 small children felt threatened from strong supernatural forces while living at 112 Ocean Avenue. Apparently, the family moved into the DeFeo house believing it to be their dream home. And according to Anson's book, Father Manusco, a pseudonym for a priest named Father Pecoraro, arrived to bless the family's new home on the same day they moved into it. While the Lutzes unload their rented moving van, the Catholic priest entered the house and began the ritual blessing alone. He made his way upstairs and to the second floor and entered the northeast bedroom, which had been Mark and John DeFeo's room. And where does that go? Oh, excellent. Yeah. And for those who are interested, the book that this was inspired by, the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson, Rose, just Alabama Rose there, just dropped the link to that in the chat if you are interested. Because, yes, that book is still in print. As Father Pecoraro sprinkled holy water around the room and recited a prayer, he heard a loud male voice allegedly say, "Get out." Although the priest supposedly did not tell any of the family about the voice, he did warn them about the room, saying, "Don't use it as a bedroom. Don't let anyone sleep in there." According to a Good Housekeeping article dated April 1977, the Lutzes followed the priest's advice and turned the room into a sewing room. From the first night they moved in, the family claimed they felt strange sensations. Anson had written that the family's personality had drastically changed. On one occasion in the book, the young couple beat their children with a strap and a large wooden spoon. After moving to the house, the children apparently became brats. Purportedly, things worsened over the next few weeks. From the stench of bile to the smell of cheap perfume, the family became increasingly perplexed by the mysterious odors that would emanate from different locations of the house. Black stains appeared on the toilets and could not be lifted even with Clorox. Green slime ran down the walls, although there appeared to be no reason or source. Hundreds of flies appeared in the sewing room, despite it being the dead of winter. Of course, Anson's crowning moment was an upside-down crucifix, and this was the tip of the so-called Amityville haunting. According to Anson, the phenomena then turned physical. Kathy was victimized by unseen touches, which had sometimes forced her to pass out. On the other hand, George would sit hours by the fireplace because he suffered from constant chills. In addition, he would wake up nightly at 3:15 a.m., reasoning that there was a connection between that hour and the time the DeFeos were killed. In reality, the time of their deaths was never determined by the medical examiner. As the month progressed, apparently the situation worsened again for the family. Anson reported that George woke up one night to witness his wife transform into a 90-year-old hag. The next night, she began levitating off bed, forcing her husband to grab her before she floated away. Realizing they needed help, the family contacted the same Catholic priest to ask him to return and perform another blessing. According to Jay Anson's book, the priest had been feeling the after effects from their first blessing. Whatever was plaguing the family was also bothering the priest. More information can be found and read in, quote, the Catholic Church hoax, and the Catholic Church and the hoax section. After failing to get the priest to return, the family took matters into their own hands. Armed with a crucifix, they walked throughout the house reciting the Lord's Prayer. A chorus of voices erupted in response, asking, "Will you stop?" The most incredible part of Anson's story was that he claimed that the daughter had befriended an invisible red-eyed pig named Jody. Quote, "Jody could not be seen by anyone else unless it wanted to. At times it was a little bigger than a teddy bear, and other times bigger than the house." Unquote. George Lutz explained in October 1979 on a TV show In Search of, which he served as a consultant and participant for the show. One night while coming back from the boathouse, Anson had George Lutz witnessing Jody standing behind his stepdaughter in her bedroom. Kathy Lutz's introduction to her daughter's friend was just as disturbing. On a separate evening, she was startled to see two red eyes peering through the darkness from her window. Although Anson's version was dramatic, Hollywood's adaptation was simply unbelievable. The book reported that the malevolent forces caused significant property damage to the house, such as the front door to be ripped off its hinges, windows being smashed, banisters being torn from their fittings, damage to the garage door, and water damage from hurricane force winds, which local meteorologist stations had no record of. Even their dog, Harry, a Malamute Labrador mix, supposedly suffered from strange forces. Although the animal was normally hyper, it had become increasingly lethargic while in the house. One time, the dog had almost choked itself because it tried to scale the fence, or so the book would have the readers believe. One of the more chilling events in Anson's book was when George awakened to the sound of a marching band in his living room. He claimed he raced downstairs and entered the room only to find dead silence and the furniture pushed to one side. After 28 days in the DeFeo home, the family claimed that they could take it no more. They grabbed their only few belongings and fled the house, taking shelter at Kathy Lutz's mother's home in near Babylon, Long Island. J. Anson's The Amityville Horror sold more than 3 million copies and was turned into a major motion picture that grossed more than $80 million. The family happily went on a nationwide tour to promote the book as their, quote, true story. Nevertheless, questions remain about the validity of their claims. Butch DeFeo, however, believed the stories were concocted with the help of William Weber, Butch's defense attorney, in 1975. In a handwritten letter, Butch wrote, quote, Amityville was a hoax that Weber and the Lutzes started. Yes, to make money. It started as my trial was in progress, unquote. Although George Lutz proclaimed the story to be true, William Weber argued the story and Anson's book were not. In September 17th, 1979 issue of People magazine, Weber charged, quote, I know this book's a hoax. We created this horror story over many bottles of wine, unquote. Amityville may never see an end to the legendary ghost stories that made it infamous. Although entertaining in one sense, comical in another, J. Anson's book was the subsequent film adaptation have weathered nearly 4 decades successfully, spawning a cottage industry built on the haunted house hoax. Yep. Yeah, sounds like Goosebumps. It does kind of, doesn't it? All right. I guess as long as we're going to be talking about that, we might as well kind of chime in on some more of this stuff. So let's actually go ahead. Briefly, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick little break here. I'm going to play a video for y'all, and that way you guys can watch this, enjoy it, and this will give you, again, a bit of a recap on everything that, everything with this case, and kind of something to just generally watch while this goes on. I'll be right back in just a few.
Long before the stately house at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York became infamous for the supposed paranormal activities that plagued the house and its occupants, it was the site of a very horrific and very mysterious murder spree. The true history of the Amityville Horror Killer is even more shocking and gruesome than the horror movies based on the house's alleged hauntings, and the most terrifying part is that it's all true. In December 1975, George and Kathy Lutz were overjoyed to be moving into their dream home, a 5-bedroom colonial house at 112 Ocean Avenue in the quiet commuter suburb of Amityville, New York, just 40 miles from New York City. At just $80,000, the house was a steal of a deal. It almost seemed too good to be true, and it very well might have been. Before moving in, the Lutzes knew exactly why the house was such a bargain. It had sat empty for over a year, ever since the last family who had lived there had met their tragic and violent end inside the home. Despite the house's dark history, the Lutzes couldn't turn the deal down. George, Kathy, and their 3 kids moved into the home shortly before Christmas. But just 28 days later, the Lutz family would flee the home in a panic, leaving behind everything they owned and never return. They claimed that the Amityville house was haunted by malevolent spirits. George claimed that he experienced intense changes in his mood, that he became sullen and angry toward his family. He would wake up every night at 3:15 a.m., right around the time that the previous family had been violently attacked. And that one night, he claimed to have been standing outside in the yard when he saw a strange and terrifying half-man, half-pig with glowing red eyes staring at him from one of the upstairs windows. The family also claimed to have seen a mysterious slime oozing from the walls of the house, and a priest who came to bless the home claimed to have heard an angry male voice telling him to get out. The priest also claimed that shortly after leaving the house, he experienced a strange illness and blood mysteriously seeped from his hands. Facts about this are a little murky, as the priest often contradicted himself. After the Lutzes fled the home less than a month after moving in, they cashed in on their experience by publishing a book, which would go on to inspire countless horror movies about the house, like the original 1979 film Amityville Horror, the 2005 remake starring Ryan Reynolds, as well as the movie The Conjuring 2, which chronicled Ed and Lorraine Warren's paranormal investigation of the supposedly haunted house. The story of the haunting of the Amityville Horror house is now a well-known legend, but less known is the equally haunting and completely true story of the family that was brutally murdered in the home shortly before the Lutzes moved in. In November 1974, just over a year before the Lutzes moved in, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. savagely murdered his entire family in the middle of the night as they slept in their beds inside the home at 112 Ocean Avenue. As the Lutzes were settling into their new home, DeFeo was on trial for the heinous murders of his parents and his 4 siblings. DeFeo, who was known to friends and family as Butch, was the oldest of the 5 children born to Ronald DeFeo Sr., or Big Ronnie, and his wife, Louise. Big Ronnie worked as a sales manager at a car dealership in nearby Brooklyn, and Louise was a stay-at-home mom to their 5 children, Butch, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John. By all appearances, the DeFeos were a well-off, devoutly religious, and happy suburban family. But behind closed doors, things in the DeFeo home might not have been so perfect. At Butch's trial, members of Louise's family would testify that Big Ronnie had impossibly high expectations for his firstborn son, and that his discipline often bordered on abusive. Big Ronnie was known to shout and scream at his son, call him names, force him to participate in lopsided boxing matches, which were little more than excuses for the older man to take out his frustrations on his disappointing eldest son. Butch was not the only target of Big Ronnie's rage. Loud and sometimes violent fights between Big Ronnie and Louise were not uncommon, and Louise even left at one time, though she eventually returned. During one particularly bad fight between his parents, in a moment that foreshadowed his violent future, 18-year-old Butch pointed a loaded shotgun at his father and told him to leave that woman alone. After high school, Butch joined his father working at the car lot, but their relationship continued to be strained. Butch, who had been bullied all throughout school for being overweight, had discovered amphetamines, which helped him to shed pounds and also set him on a dark path. By the time of the murders, Butch had a reputation for drinking, drugs, and fighting, and his relationship with his father was more fraught than ever. Still, no one could have predicted just how dark a turn things would take next.
Okay, so yeah, this is kind of just setting up everything that we know so far and just kind of getting into what led to the murders. And just quick little shout out to MLS Law, making law simple. What's going on, buddy? How you doing? All right. And so we're going to continue on with this here.
Next, on the night of November 13th, 1974, after a particularly bad fight between Butch and his father, an enraged Butch DeFeo entered his family home just after 3 a.m., carrying a .35 caliber lever-action hunting rifle. With just the faint light from the upstairs bathroom illuminating the stairs and hallway, Butch crept upstairs and entered his 43-year-old parents' bedroom, where they laid asleep and oblivious to the fate that awaited them. As his parents slept peacefully, Butch raised his rifle and shot each of them where they lay. Big Ronnie was critically injured but struggled to his feet and attempted to fight his attacker before Butch finished him off with another point-blank shot. He then turned to his mother Louise, who lay moaning in bed, wounded and bleeding, and ended her life with a second bullet. Not content to just rid himself of his abusive and overbearing parents, Butch next turned his attention to his younger siblings. Butch entered the room of his youngest brothers, 12-year-old Mark and 9-year-old John.
And I'm just going to give you guys a quick warning. This is where it's gonna get a little bit dark. So just throwing out the warning here.
Shit's about to get fucky.
Just giving you the fair warning. Okay, yes, I know, Sean, but it's a quick recap, and I needed a bathroom break.
Where the 2 young boys must have been laying frozen in terror in their beds after hearing the commotion in their parents' rooms. After a recent football injury, Mark was only able to sleep on his back, but the killer ordered the 2 boys to lay face down on their beds before he shot each of them point blank in the back and left them to die. Next, Butch entered the room of his 13-year-old sister Allison. As she turned her head to look at him, he shot the young girl in the face. The bullet hit her left cheek and exited through her right ear, killing her instantly and disfiguring the once beautiful young woman. Finally, Butch entered the room of his oldest sister, 18-year-old Dawn. He pressed the barrel of his gun against the back of her head and fired, killing her instantly. Once his entire family was dead, Butch discarded the evidence, including his bloody clothes, the rifle, and bullets. He then calmly took a bath in the house where his dead family's bodies lay, changed his clothes, and went to work as usual. Later that very same day at around 6:30 p.m., Butch turned up at a local bar where he was a regular in a panic. "You gotta help me," he reportedly shouted. "I think my mother and father are shot." Butch led a small group of men to his parents' nearby home where they found the bodies of his parents and siblings face down in their beds, shot to death and covered in their own blood. One of the men had the good sense to call the police, who arrived and questioned Butch. After Butch mentioned that the murders might have been done by a mafia hitman and that he himself might have been the real target, police took Butch to the station for his own protection. There, however, his story started to fall apart. The hitman in question, Louis Fellini, had an alibi, and investigators noticed significant holes in Butch's story, including his own whereabouts during the murder. Before long, Butch broke down and confessed to having ruthlessly killed his entire family, telling investigators, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast." The next day, neighbors watched in shock and horror as police removed 6 bodies from the home on Ocean Avenue. The peace and quiet of their unassuming suburban neighborhood had been shattered, and the town would never quite be the same again.
Sean, you're fine, buddy. I get it. It's okay. Don't worry, buddy. Oh, jeez. Murph asks, whose bed did we see? I believe that was actually John DeFeo's bed. He was the older of the two younger boys. And because Mark had the oh no, actually I take that back. I apologize. It was Mark's bed that we saw that had that was the bloody mattress. Let's see.
Ronald, Louise, and their murdered children were laid to rest in the nearby St. Charles Cemetery in Farmingdale, New Jersey, and Butch was charged with 6 counts of murder. At his trial, Butch didn't deny killing his family, but he still pled not guilty and mounted a defense based on insanity. Family members testified about the abusive treatment that Butch experienced at the hands of his father, Big Ronnie, and how it had affected the fragile young man. He also claimed that he had heard voices, and that those voices told him that his family was plotting against him. He said he believed that if he didn't kill his parents and siblings first, that they would kill him. A psychologist for the defense backed up his claims, but the prosecution psychologist didn't buy his story. He stated for the record that Butch was a drug abuser with a history of heroin and LSD use, and that he might very well have antisocial personality disorder, but that he was entirely aware and in control of his actions during the heinous crimes, and was therefore responsible for his actions. The court agreed, and on November 21st, 1975, Butch was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder. On December 4th, 1975, just over a year after he had callously and violently murdered his entire family, Butch DeFeo was sentenced to 6 consecutive prison terms of 25 years to life, 1 for each of his innocent murdered family members. Butch was also transferred to the Sullivan Correctional Facility, a maximum security facility in Fallsburg, New York, to begin serving his sentence. While in prison, Butch gave many interviews and provided conflicting accounts of what had happened that night in the house in Amityville. He also consistently denied that he had killed his younger siblings. He applied for parole numerous times but was denied each time, and he remained in custody until March 12, 2021, when he died in prison at the age of 69. Despite Butch's arrest and conviction for the murders of controversy still surrounds the case to this day. Many believe that there is much more to the story than what the court case shows, and countless conspiracy theories have formed in the years since the killings. From prison, Butch had sometimes claimed that his oldest sister, Dawn, was the one who killed their siblings before Butch killed her following an argument. At other times, he had seemed to hint that family mafia connections might be behind the slayings. Butch has also claimed that his lawyer pressured him into claiming insanity, and that the lawyer was in cahoots with the next owners of the home, the Lutz family, to try and sensationalize the story and drum up publicity to boost sales of books and movies about the crime and the supposed haunting of the house. There are some real mysteries surrounding the case too. For one thing, none of the family members made a run for it after hearing the first gunshot ring out in the silent house, lending credence to the theory that there were multiple gunmen, and none of the nearby neighbors reported hearing anything unusual that night. With all of the witnesses and now the alleged killer dead, it's unlikely that we'll ever know the full truth about what happened that night in the Amityville Horror House. For their part, locals are dismissive of the tales of hauntings and disdainful of the attention that the case and the resulting books and movies have created around their once quiet and peaceful town. The Amityville Horror House has sold 4 times since the murders, most recently in 2017 for $605,000. And not one of the home's owners have claimed to experience anything paranormal or unusual in the home since the Lutzes left. Whether or not the house at 112 Ocean Avenue is haunted, the true history of the Amityville horror killer is proof that a true horror story doesn't need to be paranormal. If you thought this video was fascinating, be sure and check out our other videos like this one.
Okay. So there we get that little bit there. So we've already. So now that we've covered that, now we got to get into some of the more salacious parts of the case. So, we've talked about what happened. We've talked about the reality of the situation. But now we get into some of the more odd parts of this. Because, as we all know, there was a famous paranormal aspect to this. Hey, Fast Group, have a good night, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us. And that section here deals with the Warrens. Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal researchers that allegedly did a lot of, did a lot of actual work studying on this phenomenon. Okay. Not sure. Hopefully that doesn't mean that we're at war with somebody. Not exactly, yeah, kind of hoping that that's not the case. Okay, thank God. With everything going on recently, it's just, it's hard to know for certain. Oh, the opposite of peace. Okay. Okay. All right. He said peace. I said more like peace out. Okay. Didn't land at all. Look, we got people blowing each other up all over the. It's like, we got other people blowing each other up right now. I quite frankly would not be surprised at this point if, shit goes sideways. I would prefer not, but, if I'm being completely honest, my 2023 bingo card is getting kind of full. Anyway, so now that we've covered the true facts around the case, all the actual information surrounding it, now we have the very odd part about this case, which is how are the famous paranormal researchers Ed and Lorraine Warren allegedly connected to this case. Now, apparently there was some things that went on, and what's interesting to know is there was actually a little known cable access show. And for those of you who actually remember the days of cable access TV, well, it gets interesting because the gentleman here by the name of Tony Spera, who actually is the current custodian of the Warrens' fabled haunted museum. Well, he had a cable access show, and he had Ed and Lorraine Warren on a lot to talk about their experiences. And so they did an actual episode and did a spot talking about the Amityville case. Now, I will go ahead and just say I'm trying to put a lot of buffer right now in between where this starts and where it's going to end. And I'm going to try I will have commentary. We'll do our usual thing, to fair use the shit out of this story. YouTube, fair use. But, I also want to make sure I bookend this perfectly. So that way, if, God forbid, I have to take it out of the show later on, I can do so without completely destroying the entire everything about the show. So, just doing a little bit of due diligence there. Hey, Chandler Remington in the chat. What's going on, Chandler? Good to see you. So we've covered the criminal case. We've covered the facts of the DeFeo murders at the Amityville house, and now we're getting into the realm of the weird and the speculation, and there's some stuff here we got to talk about. So, for that being what it is, oh, excuse me. Still a little congested. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're going to watch this video and we're going to actually cover it. So, Next Invader says, yes, I believe he's their son-in-law. Not 100% certain at that, though. Yeah, I think Tony Spera is their son-in-law. And he had a cable access show where he had on Ed and Lorraine Warren to talk about their various paranormal adventures. One of them, one of the early ones, of course, being the Amityville house. Yes, I appreciate your patience there. Yeah. Rose says, Kaiser, just let it rip and say what you want. Don't let it YouTube muzzle you, friend. I'm not going to. I'm just making sure that if I have to remove this section from the show because YouTube is asshole, that I don't derail the rest of the show like I have the last couple of shows. This is what we call hedging our bets. So, all right. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and throw this on the screen. It's about 29 minutes long. I'm going to speed it up just a nudge, hopefully to kind of try and get past those censors a little bit. But also because these people talk slow. And also want to go ahead and see if I... excuse me. See if I can go ahead and provide some commentary wherever I can in here, and we'll kind of go for it. So, all right, folks, let's let it rip. Let's get into the creepy part of this with the Ed and Lorraine Warren investigation of the Amityville house.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Seekers of the Supernatural. I'm your moderator, Tony Spera, tonight along with Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren, your hosts. Tonight, we're going to speak about a show that I'll bet you everybody in the audience, bar none, knows about. It's a show about a place in Long Island. Amityville, Long Island. Probably the most famous case ever investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren. And you know, to this day, we have people come up to Ed, to Lorraine, and ask them if Amityville was a hoax. They'll come up and say things like, I knew someone who was in that house. That was a hoax. There's no such thing as ghosts at Amityville. I got to tell you, I know it was not a hoax. Ed Warren will tell you, Lorraine will tell you, that house was one of the most haunted locations in all of America back in 1974, 75.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree there. That chair is very distracting. I don't know if the house is haunted, but this guy's sense of decoration is definitely that way. Yeah, he looks apart. And this is a good sounding speed. Yeah, I got it at 1.25, so we'll see if that helps. I am trying to tinker around with creating like a custom layout for this that I can actually have an overlay, so that way I'll have like a watermark that goes over it that might be able to help shield me from some of the stuff, but who knows? We'll see how that works. And I apologize if I'm sniffing a lot. I'm just still got congestion.
So with that, I think we'll start the program by asking Ed and Lorraine how they started out with Amityville, how they got involved. So Ed, can you please tell us how you got involved the first instance?
Yes. Well, of course, we were called by Marvin Scott, who was the anchorman for Channel 5 at the time. But we had met Marvin about a year earlier at a haunted church in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And he was impressed by our investigation. And we had not heard about the killings in Amityville because Lorraine and I were out of the country at the time. And when he asked us to go there because 6 members of a family were murdered, and then a little over a year later, another family moved in. And this family fled the house after 28 days. Well, of course, this interested both of us. So we went to the Amityville home. We met Marvin Scott with a camera crew. And
Ooh, that'd
we
be
were supposed to
fun.
meet
I'll at least
George
take a
Lutz,
look at it.
who
Yeah.
was going to let us in the house. But George wasn't there. And he made a phone call, and George Lutz said, the closest I'll come to that house is 4 blocks away. I'll give you the keys at a pizza parlor nearby. Well, we went there. We met George. He gave us the keys, and I'll never forget it. He was sitting as close to me as you are, and I said, remember now, this is the first time I've ever seen the guy. Mr. Lutz, what happened to you in that house? Because I really didn't know what happened. And he just looked at me, and he said, you know, just like that. I said, no, I don't know. And I said, what happened to you in the house that you were so frightened that your family and yourself fled out of there?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
That's
Now
all
I
he
was getting a
kept
little
saying.
sick of this. I said, I don't know. I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not a medium. I'm an investigator. And I thought to myself, this guy doesn't even want to talk about it. Is he that scared of it? Well, I found out that he was afraid to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to give a recognition.
Right.
Well, we took the keys. We went to the house. Now, as I just said, I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not a sensitive. But when I opened up that door and walked in that house, it reeked of death. Not just because of the 6 people who were murdered, the DeFeos, mother, father, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers. And this all occurred on November 13th, 1974, at 3:15 in the morning. Every member of the family was found shot to death, all lying on their stomach, Tony. Now, we'll get into that during the program, but that in itself was unnatural. The police had felt they were drugged. They were not drugged, and they found that out during the autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
We walked into that house, and it's my custom, Tony, to go down into the cellar, the lowest part of the house. These are usually the darkest areas. This is where evil thrives. This is where it survives. It hates God's light. It hates the sunlight. It hates any kind of light. So while Lorraine was walking up the stairs with the camera crew, I went down into the cellar. It was a huge place. We'll show pictures of it later.
Yeah. So real quick, do want to, because I have to, do my little interruptions to add context and commentary. So yeah, kind of something that he mentions there that, see, again, unfortunately, the Warrens have since passed on. The DeFeo, let's say Butch DeFeo is dead. Everyone, pretty much everyone involved with this case, for the most part, has all passed on. But there is something interesting the way that he's kind of unraveling the story and explaining it, because there's little details that just sounds believable. Now, I'm just going to say it sounds that way. I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying anything in particular is one way or the other. But I'm just saying there are little kernels in here that just kind of like, if you think about it from a logical perspective, this seems like sensible things that sensible people would do that aren't actually like sensationalist or weird or crazy or whatnot. Mercer says cellars are dark and evil. Yeah, I agree. Trust me, the basement of my family's house when I was a kid growing up, I used to hate that place so damn much. Yeah. And I used to hate because we have their basement is unfinished. So used to be, there was like a half wall down there and you could just see straight down into the basement. That's since been renovated a little bit and it's a little more finished now, but yeah, the utility room back there and everything is just, it was so creepy. Just, yeah, not fun.
And as is my custom as a religious demonologist, I took out a crucifix, I held it up, and I commanded in the name of Jesus Christ and the blood of Christ what was there to reveal itself. It wasted no time. I never had such a quick reaction, Tony. I felt as though I was underneath a waterfall. That's how terrific the pressure was on my head and shoulders, forcing me down to the floor. Then I felt what I can only describe as hundreds of pinpoints of electricity hitting my body. And as though somebody had taken a hot towel and dropped it over my face, I couldn't breathe. I knew what was happening immediately. I felt it before, but not to that extent.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately went into what we call religious resistance, which means that I again commanded in the name of Jesus Christ, the blood of Christ, what was there, to leave and go back to where it came from. Immediately it lifted off. I went up the stairs to where Lorraine and the camera crew were, and she'll tell you what she felt there.
Well, now I had no way of knowing, Tony, since I was they asked me to go up onto the next floor. I had just left walking all around on the first floor, and it's in that one room, that wet bar room, the room that you see on the very front of the house, that I stood and could see all of these bodies all lined up.
Clear visually.
Clear visually, I could see that. That's where the DeFeos were prior to being taken out, you know, to the morgue. And that was horribly disturbing. And I remember I took that relic of Padre Pio, which no camera person knew I had, and I cupped it in my hands and I prayed, you know, to him.
Right.
Now that is the room where the image of him, Padre Pio, it was picked up on film.
We probably have a slide of this.
Yeah, we're going to have a slide of it, Tom. Now at this point, I'm still on camera, so I'm not looking. I just think Ed is with me, that he is somehow behind the cameras and that he is there. And I start to go up the stairs. Never did I know that he went downstairs. I did not know that. I started to go up to the first landing where the great big window is. And as I did, it felt as if I was standing right under onrushing water. And it bothers you. It's a pressure that's on your body to such a great extent.
What happens is that the atmosphere actually solidifies in homes like this. It's like trying to penetrate a wall of cement, really.
So I got up, and I made it up to that landing, and again, I cupped that relic of Padre Pio and asked for his help, his guidance, and made it up the rest of the way. When I got up to the top of the stairs, remember, I'd never been in this home. I knew nothing about anything about it, nothing about the history at all, Tony. It was just another haunted house, except that we were on camera. I went to the left and went in this room. That was the sewing room.
Right.
And in that room, I looked at Marvin Scott, and he told me just a year ago that he will never forget what I said to him, and that is, I hope this is as close to hell as I'll ever get.
Wow.
Yep, that's a pretty powerful statement there. Genital says, I'm telling you now, if my soul is left to roam the earth after I die, I ain't hanging out in a cellar. Yeah, you know, hey, I'll be completely honest. I say the beach sounds great. Sean D says, yeah, I don't buy the ghost thing mainly because of these two. Well, we'll talk about that. And whenever we get into the real talk with Kaiser, I'll let you in on a few things of my own, that kind of epiphanies that I had about this case in particular. Murph's Turf, I get church lady vibes. Well, I mean, they are religious. They, you know, hey, they were actually very devoutly religious people. So, yeah, I don't really blame them. I mean, it was just kind of their thing. Sean D says, I'd say they're amazing actors, but I think over time they really believe their fallacy. But who knows? I'm probably the wrong one. You usually am. The way they reenact things is very telling. Yeah, and I mean, that is definitely something to mention, is that they are very good at description, storytelling, that kind of thing. So there are a lot of questions that a lot of people have, and, you know, I mean, I totally understand some of the skepticism. My personal take, I don't know for certain about these two, but yeah, it is distracting. You do pick up on it. Oh, that chair, it's what's so distracting. Yeah. Gives his guests the uncomfortable chairs. Who said, hey, Grandpa, grab Grandpa's chair and set for the set, would you? The General says, that's why I don't believe in ghosts. Beaches and mansions would be the most haunted. Yeah.
And in that room is where Father Pecoraro was told by an unseen voice to get out. It's the room where the hundreds of flies were killed. That's all.
He was
and
also
that's,
slapped in the face at that time,
yes.
which a lot of people don't know. They think that the voice was the only thing he heard. After he heard the voice, he felt a physical slap in the face. He told me this himself. He repeated it to reporters. It's on official file. There's no two ways about it. People have said there never was a Father Pecoraro, and we couldn't even mention his name for the first 2 years until we got permission to do it. Now, a lot of people out there have heard the Amityville Horror is a hoax. Why do you think that is? Because the atheists want you to think it's a hoax. They don't want anyone out there to believe for 1 second that a home like in Amityville could be haunted by diabolical forces, which it was. Their aim is to kill any belief that you have. Because if you believe that there's such a place as Amityville and a horror that was in that home, you might believe in a supernatural God. They don't want that.
No.
You might believe in a devil. They don't want that either, because a skeptical public is the best protection that devils have. And devils do exist. Demons do exist. And 25 years ago, just like in Bridgeport, Connecticut, when we went in on the Lindley Street case, 966 Lindley, I offered a $3,000 reward to anybody, and I'm offering it again. Anybody out there that can come to me and prove, the first person comes to me and proves that the case on Lindley Street was a hoax, I'll give them $3,000. Anybody that can come to me, the first one comes to me and proves that there was a hoax committed by the Lutzes, ourselves, Prentice Hall, the priest, and anybody else in Amityville, I will give them $3,000. Nobody has ever come to collect that money, because both of these cases were very genuine, and both of them made international headlines. This is what the atheistic community hates. They don't want you people to believe out there that such things as devils exist. And even the church today is tight-lipped about what's going on. What's going on with the church? That's what I want to know.
Right. Now, I know we have some slides.
So real quick there. Yeah, how would ghosts have rules, you know? Like there's a ghost government, ghost police. If I had to take a stab at it, my guess would be there's got to be some kind of, I mean, if you're really thinking about it from this standpoint and perspective of, we're basically as humans kind of like a bioelectric signal inside of a meat suit, if you really want to break it down to the just bare bones. So I would say maybe it's possible that if you remove the you know, the meat suit, basically the body, as it were, the physical body, as it were, and you're left with just an energy, it could be that energies or certain like things like that are get anchored to one spot. I mean, just my take on it. I have another theory that I've kind of, or hypothesis really, that I've tossed around for years. I kind of refer to it as geodesic recording, but yeah, we'll talk about that another time. Jenny Graham says, I watched her on the show before. It was good until one time was very obvious the fib in them. I think they try to push the show they were on through as well. Yeah, I think that there is some definite questions, you know. Let's see. $3,000, what an odd number. Yeah, I think 3,000 was a lot more at that time, and it just kind of, they stuck with it. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. This isn't a ghostocracy. Probably the only amount he could get insured. Kaiser, so the universe is a giant consciousness and we're just meat puppets in a small piece of overall universe brain? I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I think that there's, you know what, we'll get into that later. I'll save that for later. Sorry, I have to deal with something there. All right. I just learned this theory. It's very interesting.
slides that we're going to set up. But while we're setting up the slides, Lorraine, and getting that all set,
Yes, basically.
what was your sense in the house? How did you feel in that house
right.
during the investigation?
My immediate reaction, Tony, when I walked in was terrible depression. You're in a home where so many people had died violently. Then a young family had moved in and they fled, leaving everything. You look all over, Tony, and it's like you're in somebody's home that they just walked out of or going to the store and they're coming back. And it was just overwhelming feeling of depression.
Everything was intact.
Everything.
Clothing in the closets, the dishes, the pans, cookware, everything you could, just like you have in your home right now. They left it. They wouldn't take one thing because the priest told them not to take anything out of there with them.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, he told them not to take
I think the slides are almost ready. Now, if we can go to the slides, Ed, did you want to talk and tell us what we're seeing on the slides?
Yeah.
I think we're going to go to the first one now. As soon as we get to camera one, I think it's just going to be a slide of the...
Okay,
That's
that of course is a sign of Amityville. And Amityville means friendly village, you know.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Maybe that, and do you know what the latitude of that is?
No.
40.666.
Really?
40.666, right where the house is.
Oh.
Next.
Weird.
Okay, that's the house as it looked at the time of our investigation, of course. Now it's been changed around.
Oh,
I
yes.
guess the people, the guy that owns it doesn't want to be bothered, and I don't blame him, because there are vandals who create a lot of nuisance. But you see, where that car is parked, People magazine reporters also parked their car there. The Cromartie family, who bought the house after the Lutzes fled, from what I understand, there was a deal made with American International Pictures to sell that house for $250,000 to them so they could use it in a movie which was to be made. Well, of course, American International Pictures was not allowed to film there because of the town fathers or the neighbors, and they got stuck with a pig in a poke. And they claimed that it was a beautiful house. Nothing ever happened to that house. There was nothing but good feelings in there. How could you have good feelings in a house where 6 people were murdered and 5 people fled? How could you have good feelings? You couldn't.
No.
But they got into that car there, their car. It burst into flames. When they were walking around in the house, they could smell this foul odor. And they said to Mrs. Cromartie, "What's that stench that we smell?" "Oh, I dropped coffee on the rug about a week ago." You should never drink that kind of coffee, believe me.
No. What's the next slide we have, Ed?
George and Kathy Lutz. Now, not too many people have seen photographs of George and Kathy.
Yep. So, real quick there. Generals, are they projecting feelings based on what they already knew about the house? Entirely possible. Let's see. Yeah, I could see money problems leading to all this. Yeah. Dang, he thick. Yeah, George Lutz was actually a former Marine. So, yeah. Got that Marine build.
You look at that guy. Does he look like the kind of a guy that would run away from nothing? Does he look like some kind of a wimp? No, he does not. And
Bye, Miss
this
Caker.
man
Have a good night.
and his wife had spent all of their down payment that they got from Kathy's home that she sold and money he had from his business, put it into that house. 28 days later, they're going to flee that and leave everything behind with all their earthly belongings?
No,
this guy was an ex-Marine. He was a black belt in karate. He hung around with motorcycle gangs. Hey, this guy doesn't run easy, believe me.
Doesn't scare easily.
No way.
He doesn't scare easy.
There's George, happier days when they first moved in. They bought the house, you know, on the Amityville River for $50,000.
Pretty good price.
That was some buy.
Was that a lot of money back then, though?
It had a pool.
Oh, that, yes.
It was?
No.
It wasn't a lot.
No, you mean this, to buy a house on the river? Oh, no, don't.
Probably should have been more.
Who would buy a house? Who? Except George said, when the dead are dead, that's it. They don't bother you.
I mean, it was a lot of money, Tony, but it
But not
wasn't enough for
absorbent.
that house.
Yeah, because it had everything.
George was an atheist, you know.
Yeah.
Today he's a devout Catholic.
Oh.
He attends church daily, and his wife.
There's Kathy.
There's Kathy in happier days. She was a waitress at that time.
Yeah.
And this was to be their dream house. You know,
Right.
this is what they saved for. This is what they wanted.
Right.
They were newly married. The 3 children, of course, were Kathy's, but George treated them like his own children.
Oh, he did. He was very good to the children.
And
Yeah.
there's statues. Now, here's my argument right here, ladies and gentlemen. Look at those statues. You know where they came from?
Nope.
Montreal, Canada, from
Yeah.
St. Joseph's Shrine.
Okay, I heard of that.
Mr. DeFeo, who was murdered, the man that was murdered in that house with his family, went 6 months before he was murdered up to Montreal, Canada, brought back a priest who was an exorcist. to exorcise that home. Now, if that house wasn't haunted, why did he go up and get an exorcist? Why did he bring him back before the Lutzes ever lived there? Because that house was haunted.
Yep.
And those statues were specially made for him to surround this house with. And people said, what's this with Mr. DeFeo? He's not a religious person. What's all the statues? He said he had a devil on his back.
Ooh.
Now, what he was talking about, of course, was his son.
Yeah.
His son, who he felt did probably come under oppression and possession at times, was into the black arts, was on drugs, and who eventually murdered every one of them. So that's what those statues were about.
Okay, next.
And here
There
you
it
have
is.
the Amityville River.
Look at that property.
Okay, look at the
Tony.
boathouse. There's the house in the background. $50,000, ladies and gentlemen.
That'd be like $500,000.
That's
more
right,
Than that.
more
Oh,
than
yeah.
that, on the Amityville
Oh, yeah.
River. But look at the boathouse.
That's the
where
boathouse in the background.
the Indian
I
tribe
agree. That was
had
kind
kept
of,
prisoners, dying
not really
prisoners,
needed.
went mad, starving. And, you know, tragedies like this draw inhuman or diabolical spirits because they love to see human misery, human tragedy. And I believe that's where it all started. But George also had a brand new boat in there, brand new, with $500 worth of tools that he left behind.
And his motorcycles.
2 motorcycles, custom made.
Wow.
A man like that doesn't leave all that
No,
behind.
absolutely not.
Look at
got
how
the kitchen,
look how
right?
it looked, Tony.
That's the kitchen.
In other words, the plants are there where she had watered them and left them on the counter to drain. The dishes from supper are right in the sink.
Wow.
That
And they were
the-
just like that when you went in
Yes,
the later.
exactly, just exactly that way, Tony.
They fled that house.
Oh yeah.
They were
Just-
frightened.
Just exactly
We've
that
seen
way.
hundreds of other people just like them. This is nothing new to Lorraine and I. You know, for every Amityville that gets publicized, like the Smurl family, the Gooden family, there's 500 that never reach the public.
Oh yeah.
So this here is not unusual to
And
see homes
Tony,
like this fled.
I remember these bolts of material.
Who's that in the middle? Me?
That's Jim Brolin.
I know. I understand.
Yeah, that's
James Brolin.
That.
And that's you, and who does his wife next to him?
No, that's a girl that he had just met, and they were dating at that time. He was leaving. We were leaving that day for Australia, Ed and I, and he was leaving the next day, and he wanted so bad to go with us, but they couldn't change the flights.
Well, you know what he told us? He would go over to the Amityville home, he'd park out in front, and he'd look at the house, and he thought, I'd like to go over and knock on the door and see if I get in. But then again, he said, no, I'm not going in there. He
Really?
wouldn't go in because he was frightened.
He was proud.
Yeah, Shenny, I definitely agree with you on that one. That part of the story definitely seems a bit, to put a word to it, let's just call it salacious. Seems like a little bit extra. Yeah, definitely makes you go, okay. I mean, because the house was built in 1927. Long time after all of that shenanigans happened, allegedly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we all live on some sort of burial ground unknowingly. Yep, pretty much. Start looking at the salt and you'll see. Okay. All right. Maybe I didn't catch that reference, but all right.
Yeah, he didn't want to subject himself to that. What a wonderful
Nice
person
guy.
he was.
He's a nice guy.
Oh,
Nice person.
Really
I
nice
like him.
guy. Very, very nice guy.
Now, what's that?
Now, that's the two
camera
cameramen
guys?
that came in. Both of these men knew combat assignments, Tony. Both of them. They had such severe heart palpitations
Most of the men did.
in that house that they got down on their knees on the floor in the house. And it was just unbelievable. Do you know, Tony, that all of the men, men, not women,
Yeah.
all of the men going into that house have all died of heart-related problems.
Except Ed.
And Ed had a heart attack sometime after going in the house. Now these,
Well, no, not all of them, Ed, Lorraine.
yes, they did.
Kaplan's still alive, isn't he? The one
Kaplan
No.
died.
What was his name?
Marvin
Not
Scott.
Kaplan.
Marvin Scott,
still
yeah,
alive.
Marvin Scott is still alive, but the principal people involved in the
But most of them are
investigation,
dead.
yes, most
Okay.
of them are dead of a heart attack because it's the media that did that check for us.
That's Marvin Scott right there.
That's
isn't it? In
Marvin
front?
Scott right there. That's Dr. Brian Riley sitting next to me, a parapsychologist from England. That's his wife, Alberta, that you can see just behind Marvin. That's during the period of time of the communication in that house. That was a horribly dangerous home. Now, this is Dr. Carlos Osis, president of the American Society for Psychic Research. Dr. Alex Tanis, they're talking to Ed and I. In the background are people from Duke University. These are the people that we brought in. We are the investigators of the Amityville Horror. That handful of people, Tony. The media.
That's it, huh?
That's it. That's all. And people came out of the woodwork after reading a book, making all sorts of statements regarding the fact that was all based on a book, based on a piece of literary property, they're saying that the case was a hoax, not based on an investigation.
This is Marvin Scott
That's
again.
Marvin again with
But
Alberta.
look at the silverware in back of Marvin Scott.
Look at that.
Right.
Them
Look
are
at the
all
valuable
heirlooms.
china in the china closet there. And what kind of dishes are on the wall there?
I
Some kind of
I
very
can't
valuable-
see
I
what they
forget
are,
what
but
they were, but
they
it was
left
in
everything.
collector.
They left everything they had.
Yes, they were collector items. Now, the man who is on our right,
So yeah, let me just pause there for a second. Yeah, so they definitely seem to be a little bit overdoing it. I agree. Yeah. Now I get it. Starting to look at start looking at the saw, you'll see their meat. Yeah. Basically, yeah, they're overdoing it a lot. Yeah, well, there goes our whole argument. Oh yeah, he's still alive, but I'll take my $3,000. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely kind of makes you go, hang on.
on the right on the
Looking over
screen,
Lorraine's shoulder.
looking over my shoulder, he was very badly affected in that house.
He was from
Duke.
Duke.
And he collapsed, Tony, and had to be taken out. The man in the middle has died of a heart attack.
Really?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yes, he had died of a heart attack. Now,
Missy's bedroom.
this is Missy's bedroom. Are you aware that the children and George and Kathy slept in the very beds that the DeFeos were murdered
I
in?
heard that. Yeah.
The only thing changed were the mattresses. That is the furniture of the little girls, and that's the room where Missy slept.
But look
Now-
at the rocking chair. George and Kathy would hear a voice coming, and they'd peek in through that door over on the right. And they see that rocking chair going back and forth by
With
itself.
nobody in it.
Nobody in it.
And the
they'd
little
come in
girl.
and see what they described as red eyes looking in through the window over there.
And the little girl would talk to that. Now, this man was one of the parapsychologists with the group, Jerry Solfin. He now has his doctorate in parapsychology, and as far as I know, is still at John F. Kennedy University.
Okay. shot?
See where the sign is, where it had the sign there,
The pole, yeah.
Tony. The sign read High Hopes.
But
did?
Yes,
you
how
see
sad.
you see where the boathouse is down there?
Yep.
One night, George, Kathy, and the three children were watching television. They looked out the window there, and they could see again the red eyes that they described as Jody the pig. He ran out, George. He looked, and it was snowing lightly, and he could see hoof prints, leading down to the boathouse.
Mm-hmm.
He went down there, and the door was damaged, as if somebody had smashed into it. Now, people said, well, there was no snow called for that night. The Weather Bureau didn't call for snow. The Weather Bureau is never wrong, are they? But did you ever see it snow on one side of the town and not on the other side?
Sure,
Yes,
sure.
positively. So they picked on little things like
Little
this.
things. They grabbed it.
Yes. Again, these are shots. Oh, there's the master bedroom. Now, there's the bed where Mr. and Mrs. DeFeo were shot to death in. And to sit on that bed, Tony, was absolutely horrible. I sat
was?
on the edge of the bed in that room. Yes. There's the red room, the so-called red room, and that's where he kept a lot
Who's
of
he?
the
But
tools.
the red room,
Ronald DeFeo?
Ronald
the red room,
DeFeo.
as they call it, though, was
It's
nothing
just
more than a cubby hole.
under
it
the
went in, it was
stairs.
about maybe 8 feet long by 4 foot wide. But this is where he kept a lot of the things that he used in
in
black
his
magic.
craft. Yes, that's where he kept them. That's myself talking with Dr. Carlos Osis and Alex Tanis, who Alex told Ed that afternoon that he came up against the most powerful evil force he ever felt.
Well, Alex Tannis
Well, look at
looks like a
his
devil to me.
Yeah, yes.
Alex looks like the devil is still in him.
He,
does.
he looks like he's going to bite into
what's
my
this
neck,
shot of?
doesn't
The
he?
sewing room?
This is the sewing room, Tony. There's the room where I looked at Marvin Scott and said, I hope this is as close to hell as I'll ever get.
And that's the room where the priest had told
Next.
the voice told him to get out.
Can I- what's this?
And was slapped in the face.
We only got 3 minutes left, so I want to get more of these slides.
Oh,
in.
yeah. All right. And this is what going up the stairs. You know what I'd like you to spend the 3 minutes on, Tony? That polygraph test.
You would?
Yes.
Yeah. I
That's
think we
very,
should
very
make pictures right
important.
now.
Okay,
This
so what we'll
made
do
by
is
the
we'll
chief-
shut off the slides, and then we'll go to, I have this.
It's funny how they portray them in the movies compared to how they are. They sound like angry old neighbors bitching about Tom not mowing enough. Surprisingly quite funny. It's ruining the movie for me. Although when I first watched it, I didn't know it was, quote, based on a true story, unquote. Yeah, it brings up a lot of questions. I'll say that.
Now,
This
ladies
is a
and gentlemen,
document. This is a document. You want to explain it? You want to
Yes,
explain
this is a document from Mr. Chris Gugas, who was president of the Polygraph Association of America, at the time of the hauntings in the home in Amityville. He had tested both Mr. and Mrs. Lutz and another polygraph expert. And here is the results.
Okay, I'm going to read this. This is by the professional security consultants. Okay, here it is. Regarding George and Kathy Lutz, dear Mr. Moses, on June 19, 1979, a polygraph examination was conducted on George and Kathleen Lutz at this office. The issues to be resolved concerned events which took place at the Lutz's home in Amityville, New York, during December 1975 and January 1976. Mr. Lutz's examination was conducted by Chris Gugas, and Mrs. Lutz was examined by Michael Rice of this office. Both examiners reviewed a book written by Jay Anson, which presented the Lutz's experiences during the period. Both subjects were then interviewed in depth by each examiner in order to make certain that each person understood each critical question to be asked on their examinations. Excuse me. Following the initial pretest interview, stimulation tests were then given each subject in order to determine if they would be suitable subjects for the polygraph. Both examiners were satisfied with the results of their stimulation tests. Then the actual exam was undertaken.
Stimulation
Polygraph instruments were used, which recorded blood pressure, heart rate, respiration, electrodermal resistance. Both subjects were in good physical condition. The following critical questions were asked Mr. Lutz by Mr. Gugas. Are the details you gave me on your frightening experiences at the Amityville house true? The subject answered yes. When you fled your Amityville house, were you in fear of your life and the well-being of your family? The subject answered yes. After leaving Amityville, did you and Kathy both levitate at your mother-in-law's house? The subject answered yes. During your 28 days in Amityville, did you experience unexplained flies and disturbing odors on several occasions? The subject answered yes. At the Amityville house, did you hear what sounded like a marching band tuning up in the middle of the night? The subject answered yes. A total of 4 charts were made, which included irrelevant and control questions as standard procedure of the polygraph. It was noted that Mr. Lutz's blood pressure tracing revealed extrasystolic heartbeats as a regular pattern throughout his exam. This does not affect his examination in the final evaluation. This condition is not unusual for persons with strong athletic participation. After reviewing the charts containing the above critical questions, it is the opinion of Mr. Gugas that Mr. George Lee Lutz answered truthfully to all of his critical questions asked in his examination. There's another one given to Kathleen Lutz that gives similar results. Don't have time to read it. After Mr. Rice evaluated Mrs. Lutz's charts, it was his opinion that she answered truthfully to all the critical questions listed above, and that no deception was indicated to any of those questions. Respectfully submitted, Chris Gugas, polygraph examiner, member, American Polygraph Association. Michael Rice, who did Mrs. Lutz, polygraph examiner of the California Academy of Polygraph Science. This is a document, personal and confidential, that was obtained by Ed and Lorraine Warren. So it's not a hoax.
No.
No way.
On a scale of 1 to 10, we don't have much
Remember,
time.
my offer still goes. Anybody out there says Amityville's a hoax, can prove it to me, come to me. I'll give you $3,000. The first person that comes right to me.
There you have it. $3,000. Anybody can prove Amityville's a hoax. For Ed Warren, for Lorraine Warren, I'm Tony Spera. Thanks and good night.
Good night.
All right, and that is the interview with with Ed and Lorraine Warren on this topic. All right. So stop sharing that. Yep, bing bang boom. All right. So we've heard the supposed paranormal stories. Now, the last thing I did want to bring up is that allegedly the Warrens did have cameras that they set up in the house, and that were, basically like an automatic cameras or something like that. And apparently they did capture one image that they claim one photo that they claim is not any one of them, put it that way. So if you just, throwing out the warning one more time for potentially creepy or disturbing images. So this photo here was taken. All right, already. So this photo was taken. Now, there's some speculation that this was actually one of the camera guys. But again, the photo was kind of inconclusive, but a lot of people have said that there is a stark resemblance to one of the DeFeo children. And some of them are saying that the white eyes in this were glowing, but that more to the point, it was probably a situation wherein like the person was wearing glasses. So also possible. Again, this is the only photo that came out of the supposed Amityville Amityville investigation that they claim revealed anything. Shandy says, red eye in black and white. Yeah. I'm quite familiar with the photography thing. So yeah, it is something that it remains unexplained, but there's enough for people to question it. So I would be remiss in my duties as the host to try and present all of the information if I didn't include it. All right. So I've got all that there. And so all right. It's time for the more candid conversation. All right. I know that everybody's been waiting on this, so just let's go. All right. I'm setting something up over my other screen. Okay. Listen here, film school. Don't you sass me. Yeah. Oh yeah, I know you, buddy. You're fine. And say Shinigram says I want to see the entire team of people there that day. That's either a dress or a Pendleton shirt. Okay. Apparently they've got the full photos and everything. I could not find them. I know that they exist. That's just the only one that showed anything weird that they have gone ahead and thrown out there. All right. So now we're going to get into real talk time. So something that whether you kind of okay, it's a tough topic, so articulating this is a little bit difficult. So when I started researching this case, something came to mind that it hit a little close to home for me. Specifically, what hit is that feeling of, I guess you could say, kind of like helplessness of just, God damn it, I don't know what to do, because you get into a situation where you see something, you experience something, and you can't wrap your brain around it. For one, you know what you saw, but it shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be real, on the one hand. And then on the other hand, you're also sitting there going, that just happened. And a lot of times these things happen so quickly and without an ounce of forewarning You ever wonder why people don't just have a lot of pictures and videos and stuff of these kinds of things happening? A lot of times, I mean, because you're talking about stuff that doesn't perform on command most of the time. And whenever things do happen, usually people don't have cameras rolling or they aren't prepared for it, because a lot of times it does come out of nowhere. And that has been my experience. I have had a few I hate even admitting to talking about this because it's one of those topics that it gets ridiculed so much, and people really stigmatize you if you really come out and talk about it or say anything about it. They just kind of think you're a wacko. Well, I've personally had some weird ass experiences that for the life of me, cannot wrap my mind around. I wanted to get into paranormal investigating. I wanted to try and, it just sounded like, oh, okay, something weird and silly or wild to do in college. And I mean, really, I thought about it as just kind of a way to kind of like have an inroad to meet chicks. I'm not going to lie. It was like, if you go up to go up to, some girls and just say like, oh, or you're talking to, it's like, oh, I do paranormal investigation. And then suddenly, bam, that triggers the interest meter, and suddenly people want to, ask more. And, hey, I looked at it as, hey, I go out there, I do some fun things. I just, kind of get to go out at night, be a little bit more sociable, get to see some cool places, do some cool things, and, say that I'm a paranormal investigator to meet chicks. That was literally how I came at it. Yeah. So, I have sympathy for those who believe, because I know what that's like. I'll go back and I'll read the full thing, but that specific, what you just said there, if you've not been in that position, it is impossible for you to wrap your mind around. Which makes this all the more difficult to talk about. And I know I feel like, you guys are, I mean, I feel like I'm okay with this crowd in particular, but it doesn't make it any easier, really, just from the simple fact that I feel crazy even talking about it, even amongst people that have also had experiences, that have that sympathy and know what it is that I'm talking about. So I guess just a couple of my experiences. I mean, for context purposes, for context purposes, all right, I'll just come out and say it here. So while I was living in Chicago, I lived in a high-rise apartment building. It had been turned into basically student housing. So it was actually, I still know the exact address and everything. Obviously, I don't want to give it out, and don't want to, I mean, even though I haven't lived there in well over a decade, I still don't want to dox myself, because I'm pretty sure records exist. But so I lived in a high-rise apartment building, and it was only about a couple blocks from Lake Michigan. You could see out over the water. You could see Shed's Aquarium. And so there was I forget which park it was, but there was a park down below, right across the street from, or right behind the hotel that was across the way. Great, fantastic view. And I was on one of the uppermost floors, so I had this perfect just window view. And of course, it was a glass sided building, so the windows were floor to ceiling, huge. So I was in a 2-bedroom apartment. There was me and my roommate. It was, I mean, it was literally student housing. So he was in his room, door closed. I was in my room, door closed. I was working on some stuff for college, like papers or something like that, listening to some music. And I had all the lights on. It's night outside, so I mean it's dark, but I can see out over the water. You got all the, usual night lights, for Chicago anyway. I'm looking out over the water and it's a great night. And as I'm sitting there in front of my computer, I don't even know really what triggered it, but I remember where my desk was in front of this giant window, so I could look out, and while I was working on stuff, I could look out over the lake. And I just was sitting there in my apartment, in my room, door closed, locked, everything. I was just by myself. And I'm sitting there in my room, and I suddenly kind of like, it's like the hair stands up on the back of your neck where you feel like you're watched. You feel like you're watched. Something else is in the room with you. And I had never really gotten that experience ever before. And it really took me off guard. I mean, I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel like really scared, I guess you could say. But it was just like, wait, what's going on? That's odd. And I remember just sitting there, I was working on my computer, and I looked up. And when I looked up to about normal eye level, I saw in the reflection of the window over here on my right-hand side. God, I can picture it. It's the fucking worst part. I can picture the whole fucking thing. And shit, man, even just talking about it doesn't make any fucking sense at all. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. But I look at this I just look up and I see it in the reflection of the window. I see a little girl. She's half crouched behind my my dresser. She's kind of like peeking out, like she's playing hide and seek or something. I can see her clothes. I can see, it's kind of like it's some kind of dress, like a kind of like a kid's like summer-ish type of dress from that time period. But here's the craziest part about this. She's not in color. She's straight up white. And I mean, white as a sheet. And I can see right through her into my closet. And I can see through her, hair. I mean, again, no, it's not like the girl from The Ring at all. I mean, she's just in. I mean, it's like if you took if there was a person standing in front of you and you took a black and white photograph of them and it was just all in grayscale, it would look like a normal person would, in just completely in grayscale. But again, it's like I can literally see through her. And she's looking right back at me. And I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm typing, I look up, I see her over here. And it's just this, we locked eyes for at least a solid 3 seconds at least. And I started like, hello? And then she turned. And when she turned, it's like she turned to, like, you know, walk out of the room, like she was turning her whole torso, but she turned inward on herself and then just gone. It was almost as if like this cloud, it was almost like I was looking at a vapor cloud, and she just went, and then the vapor cloud just collapsed in on itself and gone. I swear to you, I have never been more weirded the hell out than I was in that moment. What was your immediate actions and reactions after she disappeared? So immediately I saw this, I turned around, like kind of, you know, I turned around in my chair to look, and I, you know, clearly she was gone. There was nothing there. And I got up, I went over to where she had been, and I noticed that as I got around the backside of my my dresser, like where she was peeking out from behind, there's my clothes hamper on the other side. So she would have been having to be like halfway through, like halfway through my clothes hamper as well. Spatially, it's just not physically possible for a solid person to do that. And honestly, I wish I remembered better. I don't remember if the room or if that area felt cold at all. I don't remember at all. But I do remember that, I mean, I looked around and I immediately got up, walked out of my room, walked through the apartment, checked all the doors and everything. Like, okay, she's got to still be there. And I was just like, what the hell? And immediately I go over, knock on my roommate's door, and I'm like, get to him, and I almost said his name, but I don't want to dox him. But I knock on his door, and he lets me in, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he just looks at me. He's like, "Are you okay? You don't look so good." I'm like, dude, I can't even explain. I mean, I told him what had just happened, and he is just kind of looks at me, and of course he's a hardline skeptic. It was like, yeah, I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe it. Whatever. Okay, whatever, dude. And just kind of, he just kind of brushed it off. At that point, I was so freaked out and just so completely and utterly just, my brain was like running a million miles an hour. I mean, I had to get out. I had to go do something. Did you feel tired at all after this? Like unusually tired? No, actually, if anything, I was bouncing off the damn walls, because I just got that adrenaline rush of like, holy crap in a basket, man. I don't know what the fuck I just saw. I ended up actually leaving the apartment, going down to the 7-Eleven to go get some drinks and snacks because I just literally, I didn't know what else to do, and I needed to get out just so that way I could go and clear my head. Do things feel like it gets foggier the longer after a moment you try to remember? No, everything is completely clear as day in my mind. No, the thing is, it is that whole exchange is so crystal clear in my mind. Because I have heard of that, like where they try to remember and their memory's kind of foggy around it. But no, my experience was crystal clear, and my memory is not any different. I mean, it's yeah. Yeah, I know, but I'm being extra careful. Anyway, Shenny says, I'm telling you, she was your guide. You caught someone watching over you. You were blessed, and if you could have heard her, she probably would have made an uh-oh sound with a giggle. Okay. Yeah, probably. I don't doubt it. And trust me, between her and the other person I saw in that apartment, who I called the green lady, I mean, possible. The green lady, I only ever saw her one time, and it was one of those where it was so quick and so fleeting. It happened after this did, like probably about 2 or 3 months later. And I was in my apartment. I was in the kitchen making dinner. It was just me at the apartment. Wait. No, I take that back. Okay, yeah, that's right. My Kevin, oh, shit. My roommate, okay, yeah, my roommate's name was Kevin. So Kevin was home, I was home, and of course, he was one of those kind of people that just cloistered himself all the time in his apartment, in his room. So it was never really a big thing for him to not be. It was actually more unusual for him to be out of his room than in his room. So I remember I came out of the kitchen, and as I'm walking over to, as I walk past the hallway, I mean, it's just like, you got the little galley kitchen here, and then you have the hallway that goes, through the, past the two door, goes past the two bedroom doors, and then the bathroom door at the end of the hall. So I had walked past there, and I didn't see her the first time, but then I had to go back and go get something else from the kitchen. I walked back a second time, and as I walked back the second time, I don't know why, but I had that feeling that I had missed something, and I looked down the hallway just in time to see this lady. And the light in the hallway was off, so it was very dim, but I don't know why, I could perceive the color of the outfit she was wearing. She was in a very elegant 1920s kind of era. It was a very nice formal green dress, black lacing all around. And she had that kind of like that dark, one of those like the 1920s kind of like those hair caps, like the little skull cap things that was embroidered in black sequins or black beads, same as what was on her dress. And she had kind of a really nice like don't know if it's a boa or shawl or something like that around her shoulders, and she was just walking by, and she turned and she looked at me and she smiled. And that's when I noticed, as she walked through the freaking door, the closed door of my roommate, that I couldn't see anything from about where her knees should be down. It didn't exist. It was just gone. It was like she was normal, perfectly, solid looking person, until you got to about where it should be about the knee down, and she just faded and stopped. Just gone. Nothing there. I mean, this whole exchange was maybe like a second or two. I just remember as I was walking by, I looked, I saw her walking. She looked at me, she smiled, walked through the door, and I'm like, holy fuck. I turn around and I take off running down that hallway and fling the door open on poor Kevin. And he just turns around and is like, dude, what the hell? And he's just sitting there at his computer desk. I said, did you just walk through this door? I knew what I saw, but I'm like, dude, okay, dude, are you fucking with me? Are you playing a prank on me? And he's just looking at me like, dude, I'm in the middle of a raid right now. He was playing World of Warcraft or something. And he's like, I'm in the middle of a raid? I have been stuck at this desk for like the last 4 hours. So no, I did not do anything. I'm like, did you just get up and go to the bathroom? No, I've been sitting here. He's like, what the hell's going on? And I just told him, I said, literally, I just saw somebody walk through the door. And I just saw this woman walk through the door, and he's just like, okay, dude, what are you fucking smoking or something like that? Because you cannot be real with me right now. I'm like, Jesus. And I left it at that, and I was like, oh my God. So those two experiences, I mean, really were like my first. And then about probably a year and a half later was when I had the one that changed my entire perception on the paranormal forever. The one that literally why I have shut everything off. I don't do paranormal investigations anymore. I actively tell people don't do it. The things that I've learned from my experiences, I tell people don't ever get into it. Don't ever mess with it. And that's why I tell people also don't mess with Ouija boards. Don't mess with, pretty much anything that you can even remotely consider paranormal. Don't mess with it. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't really give it, any airtime in your brain. And it's also why I am so very there are certain words that I will not just allow out of my mouth. Yeah, Shandi, I was thinking about getting into paranormal investigations. Thoughts? Don't fucking do it. No. I am okay. I know I don't owe you anything. I am begging you. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Don't do it. Sorry, I get a little upset about that one because long as we're here, long as we're discussing it, maybe I should go ahead and just tell you. Let me read some of these other stories there. The other person, that was the one. She was an adult, again, early mid-30s. That's what we were after. She was not on the same level. She was like 3 feet off the ground, right? Yeah, she was like, again, like the last 3 feet of her, or probably about the knee down. Yeah, she just didn't exist. Everything else in there, perfect HD clarity. I could see her. Sean D says, listen, this where I fall off this. I 100% believe this experience happened. I just don't believe that there was a ghost there. I'm eternally curious about what it is that happens with our brain in these cases. I don't know. See, that's the thing. I don't know what I saw was a ghost. I've never said the word ghost from minute one of this whole thing. I don't know what I saw. Or, well, let me rephrase that. I know what I saw. I have no explanation for it. And I have not once ever said the word ghost. You could go back and rewind there. I have not once said the word ghost because I am very careful about that. I don't know what it was that was there. I know what I saw, but that's all I can really say about it. Yeah, you don't know how to classify what you saw. Yes, that would be a much better way of saying it. I don't know how to classify what I saw. Also 100% respect the other side's view. I want them to be right, but just find this more interesting. Yeah, things that don't make sense. Hey, Jude, good to see you. So here's the okay. I as long as we're on the subject and whatnot, I'll tell you the story. The last one that the experience that made me pull the plug on any interest in anything paranormal. So, about a year and a half after the last experience that I had, I was in the same building. I had just moved up one floor and on the other side of the building. So, I was now on it was basically the top floor of the building. And the former RA resident advisor had moved out of that apartment. Me and Kevin we had gotten another roommate, and that lasted a short time because there was a lot of friction. The two of us kind of or I should say the three of us kind of got into a lot of fights, me and Kevin against this other guy, and it just turned out to be a bad living situation. We finally ended up with the RAs getting involved, and then they decided to go ahead and move us to just a standard 1-bedroom apartment that was designed for 2 people. And we kind of just said, all right, that's fine. And I think maybe only about a week after we moved into that apartment, some things happened and Kevin basically got kicked out and had to leave college. So I ended up with an apartment all to myself. And they said, well, we don't have anybody that actually needs an apartment right now, so enjoy it while it lasts, but you're going to get a second roommate, or you're going to get a new roommate here within, at least at some point, probably within the next, 6 months to a year. I said, okay. No, Kevin did not do meth. His addiction was video games, to the point that he literally would not leave his room. He would not go outside. He kind of almost turned a little bit of I'm not going to finish that sentence. But yeah, he just kind of like would not leave at all. And because of that, he didn't go to class. And because he didn't go to class, he failed all of his classes. And when when you fail all your classes at college, well, you know, I don't know if he did or not, but I, honest to God, would not be surprised. Okay. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Anyway, so I moved up to this apartment. This, it's a floor up. It's the other side of the building, and it's, another room. So I get moved in. I've got the place to myself, and for the most part, I mean, it's a nice place, but the whole atmosphere in that apartment was just very different. I was, again, all by myself in that building, or not the building, but I was all by myself in that room, nobody else there, and I always felt like there was somebody standing behind me, just like angry with me. Felt like there was always somebody standing over me, staring at me, judging me, like just really pissed off that I was there. And I'll admit, I got jumpy. And, a couple more than a few times, I would check over and look over my shoulder, and there would be nobody there. And it just weirded me out to no end. Definitely not. And considering I've never been to Asia, well, Anyway, so I'm sitting there, and at one point, one of my old friends from college, who had actually, she had left college to go pursue a different thing, but she lived in this, she went and moved back to her old hometown, which was just over in neighboring Portage, Indiana. I was still living in Chicago. She, moved back home to Portage, Indiana, and that's like just a quick ride on the South Shore line to get back to Chicago. It's not that far. And so, we texted, whatnot. We tried dating once. It didn't work out, but we were still good friends. And anyway, so she messaged me one time and said, "Hey, I've actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to come up for a weekend and hang out. We haven't hung out for a long time, and I miss the old days." And I said, "Yeah, let's do that." So I went ahead and we made our arrangements and everything, and I met her at the train station, and went back to my apartment. So she was gonna stay overnight. I had 2 beds. I offered her one. She decided she wanted, she said she would feel more comfortable sleeping on the couch. I again said I could sleep on the couch. You could sleep on the bed. It's fine. She said she just preferred sleeping on the couch. I said, all right, that's fine. So one thing I never did in this apartment, and I don't know why, it always in the back of my mind filled me with this almost irrational fear, was I never turned the light over the sink off. It had this little, like, one of those fluorescent tube lights. Sean, I mean that in the nicest way. Yes, I did. So yeah, we went as she was a friend of mine. She had lived in the same apartment building at one time. She had moved back home. I met her at the train station. She came back to stay at my apartment, and trust me, Nothing happened. I would have loved for something to happen, but it didn't. Things just didn't work out. Anyway, not the point of her visiting anyway. So, again, I offered, that and all whatnot. And she just decided she wanted to sleep on the couch. I'm like, okay, fine. So, again, I had this irrational fear that if I did not ever turn off the light above the sink in the kitchen. And again, it's just like one big open room. It's not, and then there's like the bedroom and bathroom off to the side. That's the whole apartment. It's just 3 rooms. So I went over, and because she was going to be sleeping on the couch, I turned the light off. One other thing that I never, ever, ever, ever did in my apartment was I never slept with the door open. I always slept with the door closed. So on this particular night, she's asleep on the couch. I'm in my bed. The light above the kitchen sink is off, and the door is open. Now, I know that there are some people who are going to hear the next part of the story, and they're going to try and start blaming things like sleep paralysis or those falling dreams. I have had those before. This was not that. And I'm prefacing this to explain to you that what happened next is just, it is exactly what the way I'm just going to describe it, because anyway, all right, I'm just failing at describing it. Anyway, what happened? So what ended up happening was I sat there and I had fallen asleep. I was, sleeping fine. And I just, for whatever reason, I woke up. Now, when I say I woke up, I mean, I just kind of like, I woke up, just my eyes popped open, and I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm staring straight up at the ceiling. No, I've still got full feeling in my arms and legs. I don't have sleep paralysis. And I just remember just thinking to myself, like, why did I just wake up? It's like, I can tell it's late, but I don't know how late. Y'all, I swear to all things. Good God, that just scared the crap out of me. Holy fuck. There's the video that I'm using for the glow effect on the screen above me just changed. And the video ended and it tried to loop back around, but there's a title card screen and it's black, and I just totally trying to describe what I was just trying to describe, and then it switched over and just flickered out like that. I just scared the absolute bejesus out of me. I feel so fucking stupid. So I'm laying there. I look straight up at the ceiling, and I'm just laying there. I'm looking up at the ceiling, and everything is okay. I'm like, why did I just wake up? And I suddenly, out of nowhere, I tell you this because this is the only way that I can explain exactly what it felt like. Somebody punched me in the gut, right on the solar plexus, and knocked the damn wind out of me. Somebody punched me right in the gut, knocked the wind out of my lungs. I rolled off the bed, fell to the floor, and as I'm laying there on my stomach, I look up. It's dark in my room. I mean, I can see very, very dim. It's very, very dim around there. But I see the silhouette of a man standing there in my doorway, and he's just standing there. Doesn't say a word, doesn't seem to be moving, but I can see that he's standing there. I just see this silhouette that is darker than the other darkness around it. Jesus, it's freaking me out right now just even thinking about it. Because I could tell he's got his fists like clenched to his side. Like he's just furiously angry. And I couldn't tell what it was, but I saw some sort of movement, like something, almost like some kind of small like thing on two legs walking. It was hard to make out, but that's the only thing I can really think to try and describe it. And it was walking there into the room, and then as I'm watching this guy, again, I am wide awake at this point. I am wide awake, and I see this guy, and he's just standing there, and he turns slowly, and he starts walking toward where my friend is laying on the couch. Y'all, I came up off of that floor charging this motherfucker, and actually I charged at this thing because I'm like, I'm not going to let this thing hurt my friend. I don't know what the fuck this is. I'm scared out of my damn wits right now. I am not going to let this thing hurt my friend. And that is all I could feel from it, was I felt this thing was trying to hurt her. Shit. I felt really fucking useless and even a bit yeah, I just felt so powerless. But I charged in there and I flipped the light on, and she was like, what the heck's going on? And I just looked around. There's nobody in there but us. Door's locked. And I was just scared out of my mind. I'll get to this in a second there, Sean. We're going to talk after this. I can't sleep, and you shouldn't yet. Anyway, at that point, I couldn't sleep anymore. It was, oddly enough, it's 3 o'clock in the fucking morning when this happens. And I was so freaked out, I couldn't go back to sleep. And I ended up somehow talking her into, said, look, I understand, if you might not feel comfortable or something, but I mean, I would feel a whole lot better if you just went and slept in my bed, and I'll just stay out here. She could see that I was really bothered by something. And yeah, I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Didn't sleep for another 24 hours after that, because even by the time I got to the other side of this whole thing, I was so freaked out that I just didn't know what to do. I mean, I literally just kept I stayed up until I literally couldn't stay up anymore, and I just collapsed basically. But yeah. Anyway. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll stop talking now. That experience was the one that really shook me. That told me that there are things out there. There are things out there. Something I can only describe as malevolent. And they don't see things the way we do, and they just this thing what I felt in that moment was not only just pure fear, powerlessness. It was just, you know, I didn't know what else to think at the time. Anyway, so after that experience just shook me to my core. I realized I need to get out of paranormal investigating. I quit. I quit. I stopped doing any kind of paranormal investigations immediately after that. Just wouldn't talk to people mostly. And yeah, it just that experience just really scared the shit out of me. Thanks, Shenny. Yeah. Scary enough there, Sean. I have had that happen. Thankfully, I haven't had one of those dreams in at least a decade, but Anyway, so yeah, the whole thing was just a wild, just it just scared the bejesus out of me. Pardon the language. I just freaked me out. Got out of there. Would not do anything with it anymore, and that's why part of the reason I've turned a lot of people off to paranormal investigating and all that, because I realized after the fact that I think in some ways I had kind of not, if nothing else, not even really attracted, but I had definitely thrown fuel on the fire, so to speak. And just with my interest in the topic and things that I had felt, and just been like, okay, well, I mean, I if I can handle, these other things, these other locations, I can handle something here. No, this thing was in the place that I lived. And if you don't have a sanctuary, a place where you can go and feel safe, you have no idea what powerless feels like until you hit that moment. You're suddenly like confronted with the idea that, oh my God, there's nowhere for me to go. Because the one place in this whole fucking huge ass city that, is where I would go to sleep to, hang my head, so to speak, and just relax is the one place I can't go right now. Came to find out sometime later through talking to some other people that lived in the building longer than I had that there was a previous tenant that lived in that room, and he actually hanged himself. Apparently, before the building was being turned into student housing, it was just a regular apartment building. This guy allegedly, they said, hey, when your lease is up, you can't actually get or you can't just renegotiate your lease. When your lease is up, you have to move out because we're going to be turning it into student housing. And this guy just apparently said, okay, I'm not leaving. And then, yeah, self-delete in that room. I had no idea. Yeah, that is. Do you see colors as sound? Actual question? What? Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, so that's kind of been that's ghost stories with Kaiser, I guess you could say. Hope that was at least somewhat entertaining for you, even though that was, in hindsight, probably not my brightest move. I probably should have not mentioned those, but okay. Kaiser, you think Chicago is a shithole or what? Yes, I do. I hate that city. There's some cool stuff there. There's some cool places I'd love to go back and visit, but look, I'm not going back to Chicago without body armor and driving an MRAP. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, folks, I think that's going to go ahead and close it out for tonight. It's actually pretty late. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and I need to go ahead and. I know I probably shouldn't go to bed this soon, but I need to get some shut eye. I'm dying. I'm tired. And yeah, it's definitely, I just need to go ahead and go to bed. I got a lot of stuff going on tomorrow, so I got to take care of. So. Let's see. Guys, take care. Leave on a smile, please. Yeah. Well, I already planned on that. So. Okay. I'll give you 10 minutes. Anyway, Gigi, I think you're on my Discord server. If you are, then we could just use the voice chat, and there's a voice chat room in my Discord server. Okay, or whatever. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was a draining night. It really wasn't draining. It was just one of those, like, yeah, it was a topic that I covered this, but then in the research for this show, the research really brought up a lot of these memories. Just these memories of seeing and experiencing things that you cannot explain. you can explain it. You know what you saw. You can tell people what you saw. But especially for somebody like me who wants evidence, who wants to see the receipts, it's infuriating because I can't do that. I don't have a way to do that. And like I said, that is infuriating to me. There's no way for me to provide evidence for this experience. And that's all it is. It's just a personal experience. And I wish to God that I could, because I feel like so many people need to know these things happen. These things exist. These things are out there. And so many people just laugh at you. They stigmatize you. They ignore you. They don't take anything you say seriously after that. And I feel like there are so many other people out there. I mean, so many other people that have experiences, that have things that happen to them, have things that they see. And they just can't. They don't want to talk about it because they feel like nobody will believe them. If people do believe them, the people that would believe them are the crackpots they don't want to associate with. And then there's also the feeling of just that powerlessness. Yeah. So it's a soft spot for me. It's a tough topic. Because I feel like that, again, so many people don't have this kind of experience. And I wish to God that having had these experiences, I wish I was ignorant to them and actually didn't have them, to be completely honest. Love hearing it because I definitely believe people experience this. Yeah. It's not like the stuff we watched before. Yeah. Just because I think the brain does it not make it real. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be some explanation somewhere. Anyway, so here's what we're gonna do. So first things first. First things first, I'm going to play a funny.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
That clip never fails to make me smile. Oh my. And okay, so with that, I definitely want to go ahead and talk about tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be my live stream. We're going to be doing the Edge of Reality, or not Edge of Reality. Tomorrow we're going to be doing Real Talk, REEL, Real Talk Live, and we're going to be doing our top 5 horror movies to usher in the spooky season. And you're saying to yourselves, Kaiser, you're saying we as in plural? Who all's coming to this thing? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we have the likes of none other than our good friend Chandler Remington, Mo in the Deep End, MLS Law, The Expert, and the White Rabbit coming to join us for a fun and amazing topic, talking about our top 5 horror movies to usher in the spooky season with. And we're just going to make it a big panel discussion. We're going to have a lot of fun and a lot of laughs. And I hope that all of you will be so kind as to come on out, bring some friends, spread the word, and I will be definitely coming on out, and we're going to be making tomorrow night a fabulously fun time. That is what we're going to be doing tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, that's going to be 9 p.m. Eastern is whenever you can catch that show. And don't forget to just go ahead and down there, hit that notification bell, so that way you know whenever new stuff goes live. Also, if you haven't already done so, which I'm sure you have, but for anybody on the replay crew who may not have done it yet, please, if you enjoy this kind of content and watching me go crazy for a couple of hours on a live stream, definitely go down there and hit that like button. If you're also hit that subscribe button if you're new. And I got new content 5 days a week. I've got live streams on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. And we get to just come on together, have a good time, enjoy ourselves. And, well, sometimes we cover some really interesting topics. We go to some deep, dark places. Other times, we have a few drinks, we laugh, have some fun, and talk about movies. So if you want to do the one where we talk about movies and have fun, come on out tomorrow night. Appreciate seeing you all there. And it's going to be a great evening. Thank you all out there so much for watching. Thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you all to all of you out there who are going to be catching this in the future. Feel free to always drop comments in the comment section below, letting me know if you got any cool stuff that you would ever like to see on this. And always feel free to check out, my other social medias on, Twitter. I refuse to call it X. And my Discord, other places like that. Check out my members only section. And feel free to go ahead and throw some stuff, information my way. Get in contact with me. Because you never know when an interesting topic that you know about might end up on another episode of The Edge of Reality. Have a great night, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out. And I will see you on the next video. Peace. You ever wonder why we're here? You ever notice that the information that we're being fed doesn't always add up to the truth? Do you ever look out your window at night when the rain's falling down? You ever look down the street and wonder what is going on around you? You ever look out at night and ask yourself, is this all that I am? Where am I? What am I? Is this all there is? Is this real life? As technology continues to bring us closer together, it also tears us further apart. We watch the skies and look at the planet around us and its natural beauty as it continues to march forward on and on and on, unending, unceasing, unwavering. And yet our world, everything that we've built, crumbles around us. We wonder, is this it? Is there more? There's got to be. We can search. We want to learn. We want to understand. We want to see all that we can see, know all that we can know. We want to look out there. We want to peek behind the veil. We want to ask the questions that nobody will answer. We want to light those fires, the sparks that ignite a curiosity in us. And we ask ourselves, what is out beyond all of that? Beyond the edge of reality?